And we are live out there in the world. I thought I was going to get a different countdown. Good morning, Tim.
Morning. We're off to a great start.
All right. How was your week?
Strong week, and I know I texted you earlier that I rocked the Wordle. I do like 7 or 8 logic puzzles. Yeah. I got the Wordle in 3 guesses. Perfect score on New York Times connections. Did the LA Times crossword in like 14 minutes. So I'm feeling sharp. I'm feeling on the ball.
Cool. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning and then I went back to bed.
We're having very different mornings.
Later in the show, I'll tell everybody home about the day I had yesterday and why we are going live on Sunday. Today is Sunday, November 24th. Welcome to Soup and Meatballs. Lots of good stuff today. And we have a new segment or something. We've meant to do this for weeks.
Yeah, we keep forgetting.
Like, you just get so into what we're talking about. So, Tim, tell us what you did.
So, as I'm learning the guitar, I was learning my different chords and like how to do chord progressions. And so I was fooling around with like a G major to a D minor. And I think I inadvertently wrote a theme song to our podcast. It's like 20 seconds long.
Let's go.
All right. I'm going to have to put the phone down for this, though.
Oh, geez.
Okay.
Get a tripod, dude.
Right? Okay. And there are lyrics. I'm not EGOT winner Marvin Hamlish, but there are lyrics.
Cool. I was expecting like Gordon Lightfoot, but I'll take what I can get.
No, and it's very melancholy. Okay.
Such is our show.
We got soup and meatballs. We got soup and meatballs. Soup and meatballs to fill your belly. Talking about sports with Harry and Jamel. We got soup and meatballs. And sports. That's the theme song.
I mean, until I see you playing the guitar, I won't be convinced it wasn't like Dave who came over.
You think I brought a ringer?
No, that was good stuff. We got to get you in the recording studio and
we need backing
like a
vocals.
music video.
Like you and Jen can do like harmonies.
Sure, why not? She can direct us. She directs 8th graders. We can't be any worse.
Well, we're not at their maturity level, though. That's my only.
No, we're slightly less. Do you remember what we were like in 8th grade? Off the record.
Oh my God, we were the worst.
I don't know. We weren't the worst, but we were like scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the worst. We might have been like a 3.75.
We weren't like the worst. Like Charles Manson was the worst. We were just like.
Might have been normal in 8th grade. You don't know.
That's true, but we weren't great. We weren't the fine, upstanding citizens we are now.
I'll tell you what, the weirdest 8th grade memory I have, and this is way off the record. My dad used to pack my lunches. I don't know if you remember this day. So we go to lunch that cafeteria was massive, by the way.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there and we blended right in. Like we were up against the back wall. So nobody would have seen anything. I opened my lunch bag and I have my regular sandwich, my bag of cookies, my bag of chips, and your standard issue Budweiser.
I do not remember this.
Oh yeah, so my dad must have been like super tired. He's just putting stuff in the fridge into the bag. Here you go. And I'm like, I can't. I'm in trouble. So I went down to the vice principal's office to tell him because Mr. Greco is my godfather. So I said, Mr. Greco, my dad packed my lunch and I promise I didn't do this. So he's like. He gave me his Coke and I gave him the Budweiser. I'm sure he had a much better afternoon.
That's like the kind of like brown bag lunch someone brings, like if they're a 1950s construction worker.
Sandwich and a Budweiser. There it is. So I laugh about that whenever I think about it, but that's 8th grade for us. But let's get into what we're supposed to be talking about here. Earlier this week, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame ballots were unveiled, and 14 players making their ballot debut. Baseball Writers of America voters have until December 31st to cast their ballots. The results will be announced on January 21st, 2025, but I mean, honestly, why wait? Tim has his ballot ready. I've got a sort of ballot ready. Tim, who you putting in? I'm curious because I looked at the ballot and my first thought was there's a lot of Hall of Very Good, but
Yes.
I don't know if it's Hall of Fame. What do you think?
So,
what do you got?
From the ballot that was released, you get to vote 10 in.
You got
can
10.
vote for as many as 10. And when
Did
you
you
talk
vote for
about
10?
What's that?
Did you vote for 10?
Oh, no.
Okay, good. I mean, I didn't, but I don't know as much about this kind of stuff. Like,
I voted for like 7 or 8.
I think I got 4, but I can be coerced.
And I will say, to your point about the Hall of Very Good, there are 2 what-ifs who, their careers were derailed by injuries, but they're not going to get to the Hall, even probably with the Veterans Committee. And I'm talking about David Wright,
Okay.
who had such a great start to his career and then just couldn't stay healthy. And then another one that's dear to my heart is Dustin Pedroia, who, a series of injuries in his early 30s pretty much ended his career. But
I looked at Pedroia.
3 titles.
Pedroia was one. He was like he was a flip flop for me. I said yes, then I said no, then I said yes, and then I said no. So yeah, I mean that's
the only way Pedroia gets in is if
I didn't even think about right. I'm bad there.
Pedroia gets in if he takes like the Bill Mazeroski route, where nostalgia factors in with the Veterans Committee in like 25 years.
Did he have that? Did he have a Mazeroski moment though, where like I think Dustin Pedroia is probably more of a Hall of Famer than Mazeroski is, but
I agree because he was an MVP, 4-time All-Star.
One swing.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't put Chris Chambliss in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah, well, maybe we should. I met Chris Chambliss, by the way.
Really?
Huge dude. Yeah, Chris Chambliss and Mark Teixeira did a meet and greet with Brandon Steiner. The Steiner member. Those pictures behind me.
Yeah,
like they're all Brandon Steiner. Like he took pieces of old Yankee Stadium and made pictures out of them. Huh. Chris Chambliss massive. Mark Teixeira not so much. Little
That's
guy.
Surprising.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll go to my ballot. I have Felix Hernandez.
He was another one. I hemmed and hawed over Felix, and I feel bad. I didn't end up with him on the list. He's not a bad choice. I like King Felix.
I just see him as being like a generational type pitcher who didn't get to play like in the biggest moments, like postseason, but was in the conversation for a good decade as one of the 5 best pitchers in the game.
Yeah. And like I said, I could be coerced. I would not feel bad about voting for Felix Hernandez. This is his first year on the ballot.
Here's another one
I don't think he gets in this year, but he might be a couple years down the road.
Here's another one who might not be on your ballot, but I think deserves to be in, is Andrew Jones. Elite defensively.
Andrew Jones was on my ballot.
Oh, he was?
Yeah. I mean, 10-time Gold Glove winner, center field. He doesn't have the big Hall of Fame number, though. He's not a 3,000 hit guy. He didn't get the 500 home runs.
But 450 plus home runs as a switch hitter with that defense, I think gets him in.
And if you look, he played, I wrote it down, he had 76 playoff games where he hit 273, which, isn't the big 300 number, but that's still really solid. He absolutely decked the Yankees in 96 as a rookie. And 10-time Gold Glove winner in center field with really good offensive numbers. Yeah, Jones made my ballot.
Okay. Here's one who I suspect is on your ballot, is Andy Pettitte.
Andy Pettitte so I put Andy Pettitte right with Andrew Jones. And I ranked them the no-brainer, I think I have to defend it too much. And then Andrew Jones and Andy Pettitte were, maybe I'd have to defend them a little bit.
Andy Pettitte, to me, the same way that Jack Morris got in is just being an absolute bulldog in the playoffs. And the same reason why I feel like even though he's a human being I don't like too much, I think Curt Schilling should be in.
Yeah, we talked about this before. Schilling and Pettitte were pretty much number-wise. And I don't disagree with, anything you said about Schilling about, personally, or does he belong in the Hall of Fame? He probably does.
And I mean, Pettitte, he didn't win a Cy Young, I don't believe. He should have in 96. He lost out to Pat Henkin of the Blue Jays, if I remember right.
Mr. Smarty Pants early on there. I got to cross that question off the list.
I told you I'm on the ball today. I've changed where at first I was a little maybe on my high horse about the steroid guys, but everyone was doing it. So I'm putting Manny Ramirez in.
Manny. So I'm.
Because if I'm putting Pettit in, he's an admitted PED guy.
I can't argue with that. And the thing I have about the PED guys, this isn't the hall of morally ethical. This isn't the hall of really nice guys. I mean, Ty Cobb just called. So
don't answer.
If you mark their what do you call those things that look like plaques? And if you mark your plaque with, played in the quote unquote steroid era and was suspected of. Was Manny ever like convicted? He never got a suspension. I don't think. He was just in the report, right?
Yeah, Manny's one of those guys, kind of like Sheffield and Piazza, where they never failed a test, but there were loud whispers that they were steroid guys.
Those kind of players, and like Alex Rodriguez on the list again. A-Rod is on his 4th year of the ballot. Same kind of situation.
And he's the guy who got caught twice.
Yeah. Here's the thing with those guys. I flip-flop. Like today I might say, yeah, I put him in. Tomorrow I'm like, dude, they disgraced the game. And then a week from now I'll be like, but... So I would be one of those voters if I made my ballot public, people would really think that I was hypocritical or I was just giving my dog the ballot and like he just changed his mind, because that's how my head works most of the time. Today I have no problem with Manny. I probably have no problem with A-Rod, because the Hall of Fame is a museum of baseball history, and they were big parts of baseball history.
And how many other guys were taking drugs that weren't part of like the I mean, how many?
A handful that weren't.
It was a big part of the book Ball 4 that guys were taking amphetamines all through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They were popping greenies like candy. Even
before that, a little bit later, we're going to talk about Joe DiMaggio. I read a book about his career. He would drink 5 pots of coffee before games. I mean,
Tim Raines several times was caught with cocaine. He's in the Hall of Fame.
There you go.
And rightfully so. And I'm not here to judge anyone's addiction problems, but I'm saying if we're going to, say that illegal substances are wrong, then they're all wrong or none of them are. And that's a good lead into my next one, which is A-Rod, because I put him in.
There you go. I'm cool. I see another one so Manny and A-Rod would have been the next level down. I'm cool with them today, but I don't know how I feel next week.
And I also feel like if, not only did Ortiz get in, but he got like celebrated for getting in. Like people were overjoyed because he's such a fan favorite. He's another one with the whispers.
If you put David Ortiz and Alex Rodriguez next to each other, and this is a media thing, which we might talk about here in a second too. One of them, David Ortiz could get away with stuff because he was happy, lovable teddy bear. He was Big Papi. A-Rod was not, and I think it started when he went to Texas for the first big contract, and then when New York gave him the second big contract, when he opted out during the World Series, he's just not a likable guy.
A-Rod suffers a bit from the LeBron syndrome too, where he came in as a young guy, and I think people hated how naturally gifted he was. He came up he was 20 in Seattle, 19.
Yeah, well here. If you're going to compare him to LeBron, I think LeBron lost a lot of people when he went to the way he went to Miami. Not that he went to Miami. He got the same way that
I think A-Rod lost a lot of people when he signed for $250 million to go to Texas.
But he didn't have a 60-minute special about it.
Right, but I still think that's
what hurt LeBron more. I think a lot of people looked at the contract in awe, like holy cow, what just happened? Like Kevin Brown had signed the first $100 million contract, and people didn't like Kevin Brown for other reasons, but he wasn't a big jerk about it. A-Rod doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities to him, other than he really knows baseball. He's a very smart baseball guy. Let's get that straight.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's not likable. Big Pop. He's a lovable guy. So I think if you're looking at the two of them, that's why Ortiz might have got in. And like you said, A-Rod got caught twice.
Right, and that is a good point because perception about someone's personality or the reality of their personality. I think it's why people were so quick to dismiss Bonds.
That's that again. Yeah,
Um,
part of it.
so the only no-brainer on my list is Ichiro.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the biggest question: whether or not you think Ichiro can be unanimous.
That's another one where I get really salty about the baseball writers and like how sanctimonious they are. Like how many players who have come up for possible induction, and you always have that one writer, whether it's Willie Mays or it's Hank Aaron or it's Jeter, and they're like, well, Babe Ruth wasn't unanimous. Like it wasn't until Mo did it. I didn't think we'd ever see an athlete break through to be unanimous because the
No, neither
writers,
did I.
the writers feel like they're these, appointed gatekeepers.
But I think sometimes the writers are like, well, I need to save my vote. I need to vote for Ben Zobrist so he stays on the ballot, or I need to save my vote for Jimmy Rollins because Jimmy Rollins needs 10% to stay on. Like, I've always thought if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. Like,
I agree.
Billy Wagner is like he's been approaching. I think he was at 68, 69, 70% ish last year, and people are saying, well, he might get in this year. What has he done in the last 360 days to become a Hall of Famer if he wasn't a Hall of Famer the last 8 times?
The only difference is how crowded the ballot is. Like sometimes,
and it's going to get more crowded. The next 5 years are going to be pretty intense.
Yeah. I don't have Wagner on mine, but I have him in another category where I want to think about it some more. Because the last two I do have, I took CeCe.
So CeCe, I was kind of wondering, like he went to Ichiro ahead of. I don't know what kind of list you have.
I just jumped to Ichiro because he was.
Didn't. Go ahead.
I just jumped to Ichiro because he's like the only no-brainer to me.
Yeah. So CeCe was in the category. I didn't think I needed to defend him too much. I mean, in this era, 250 wins, almost 3,100 strikeouts. He won a Cy Young. He won a World Series. What he did with Milwaukee should be celebrated in a documentary because that year, when he was traded to Milwaukee, he pitched every other day. He hit like a G. Oh, dude.
And he was great in Cleveland.
Oh, he was amazing in Cleveland with was he there with Cliff Lee?
Yeah.
I mean, they had a roster back then, man. Wow.
And then
you had one other then.
The last one I took sort of under where I compared him to someone who's already in. If Ozzie Smith is in, Omar Vizquel has to be in.
Yeah. So Vizquel was he was right there with and I won't argue. Was he the best defensive shortstop of our lifetime with Ozzie?
Oh yeah, they're 1 and 2.
11-time Gold Glove winner. I mean, yeah, that's. I don't feel bad about Omar either. You know what you talked? I should put Omar on my list. What was I thinking? I did this last night, honestly. So I was a little tired, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, Omar's he's a Hall of Famer.
And the ones who I want to come back to are Wagner and then 2 Philly guys.
I don't know what's going on with your. We lost you for like 2 seconds there. So
I said the 3 who I want to revisit. I want to think about a little more are Wagner, Rollins, and Utley.
So no love for Adam Jones, huh?
I'll tell you because I was saying to someone. I think last week about like, you can joke about like a Ben Zobrist, but if you went to someone who was just drafted and they said, you can either let your career play out the way it'll play out. Maybe you'll get to the show. Maybe it won't. Or I'll guarantee you could have a career like Ben Zobrist where you're an all-star and you win a World Series and you're very good for a number of years. Yeah, I mean, people would take the deal.
Ben Zobrist is a much better baseball player than I was, so yeah, sign me up. But his first year on the ballot, he's not going to make any traction, and this will be his one and only time.
And also, if that's the criterion, we're going to have to add another wing on to the Hall of Fame. Players who were better than Aaron Gemelli. Come on in, Carlos Baerga.
Come on down, Rick Cerrone. There's everyone on, the 1970 San Diego Padres team, whoever you are.
So that's my ballot. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm. So we've had the same. You had my 4. I feel bad that I didn't really examine Omar Vizquel, so I'd vote for him. I don't commiserate like this when they put their ballots together, but maybe they
I'm
should.
sure they do.
Are they allowed?
Yeah, I don't think there's any rule about talking over a ballot with a fellow voter.
Yeah. Well, there it is. So you talk me into Omar, and maybe I'll talk you into Mark Burley simply because he had the best highlight I think I've ever seen, catching a foul ball and then doing the behind the back to first. If there was a Hall of Fame for plays, that would be in high consideration.
I definitely have Burley third behind Felix and CeCe, though. If we're ranking the careers of the 3 starting pitchers.
Behind CeCe
and Felix Hernandez.
I'd put him behind Pettit too, but that's.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of Pettit. I would absolutely put him behind Pettit too.
Yeah, but so we'll find out 121-25 how right we were. We're not right very often. You just have to look back at our NFL predictions, but that's for another show.
I don't think the Bengals are going to win 15 games, man. I got to tell you. Unless they make it a 30-game season, then they might get there.
I don't like Dallas's chances either, but here we are. We're going to stick with baseball here for a minute. Also announced earlier this week, Major League Baseball had their end of season awards. I don't think there was ever really any doubt for MVP. Tariq Skubal and Chris Sale won their respective leagues Cy Young. Paul Skeens winning Rookie of the Year, I think, was a bigger no-brainer than either MVP, honestly. And Yankees pitcher Luis Gil wins the Rookie of the Year in the American League. But the big news, everybody cares about the most valuable player. Was there really a competition in either league?
No, and I'll say I don't know if I've ever seen in my lifetime a postseason where the awards were such a given, and not just MVP, but for Cy Young. It just seemed like they were all decided weeks ago. In our lifetime, we'd never seen unanimous MVPs in both leagues until last year. Now it's happened twice. For Ohtani to be 50-50, and yet if him and Judge, like if there were only one league MVP, it probably would have been Judge. I think that tells you it would be a conversation, certainly.
I don't think I think that would have been a vote. Because I mean, Judge had just an awful stretch. I want to say in mid-May, so I will, where he couldn't buy a base hit. He couldn't get on base, but he still finished the year with 58 home runs. I mean, if that May was just average, he probably looks at 65, 66 home runs. He had 144 runs batted in. He's probably looking at maybe 165 runs batted in. He slugged 701. But if you look at the 50-50 season of Ohtani, I mean, he hit 310. He slashed 646. So he didn't slug as good. His slugging wasn't as high as Judge, but dude, 50-50 is revolutionary. It's never happened. So you'd have a talk, I bet.
He got hot down the stretch. Like the 10 RBI.
The 10 RBI game again.
Like he was doing like video game stuff.
Yeah, it was like Baseball Stars, American Dreams level.
Yeah. I'll tell you who I feel bad for is the runners up, because Bobby Witt and Francisco Lindor
had great years.
Yeah, they would be MVP. Like Lindor, with how he carried the Mets into the playoffs. If Ohtani had never signed into the National League, we'd be talking about Lindor as the no doubt about it MVP. And I mean, Bobby Witt, you'd like to think there is an MVP or two in his future, But he's another one where he was just fantastic with what he did for Kansas City.
And in a crowded field, when you have big names like Ohtani and Judge, that you're almost fighting the name too. Like going into next year, like we'll forget this year. Ohtani and Judge are probably the odds-on MVP or odds-on favorite to win MVP again, just because of who they are. If they have the same kind of season, unless you're the kind of voters like, okay, he's already done it. Can we feed the other guy if they're comparable? The thing is, the years they had this year were.
They set a standard. Like if Ohtani only hits 42 home runs and steals 31 bases next year, people will be like, "Oh, he's losing it."
Is that all? Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. They've set their own bar pretty high, so it's something people can talk about for years and years to come. And speaking of talking about MVPs for years and years to come, a couple of weeks ago you brought this up, and I know you've had more discussions with my dad about this than anything. There was no doubt really this year about the MVPs, but there have been doubts in years past. And for you, it's the American League MVP in 1941. And, a few weeks ago you said, we should talk about this. And I thought, well, it doesn't make sense to talk about it now, but now it does, because we just announced the Major League Baseball MVPs. So 1941 is one of a handful of Major League Baseball MVPs that have been discussed and dissected and things like that. And it really boiled down to two players and maybe two numbers.
Yeah. When you talk about 1941, it's not even Williams and DiMaggio. It's 406 and 56. And I think that's the sort of the popular conversation, but I think it's the wrong way to look at it, because like with any
I have MVP, a different number in mind, but we'll get to my number later.
Okay. I think ultimately it comes down to how do we define value. So by any metric, either that would have been used in 1941 or that we would use today, if we're just talking about what they did at the plate, Ted Williams had the superior season. He was 5 RBIs from a Triple Crown. He had like a 1,300 OPS.
6 RBIs from a Triple Crown.
Oh, I thought DiMaggio had 125 to 120 for Williams.
Yeah, it did. So he needed 126 to get the Triple Crown.
Well, but if he would have tied, he still would have gotten the Triple Crown.
Okay, well, it would have been a cheap Triple Crown for Teddy, but okay. No, I can't disagree there statistically. Yeah, I'm with you.
But
so also, value versus outstanding season or most outstanding player.
Right, but you have to look at the fact that the Yankees won 101 games that year.
And that's my number, 17.
Yeah,
that's how many games the Yankees beat the Red Sox by.
Yeah,
and that's a bit, in my opinion, one of the bigger reasons. If you're going to vote for value, you have a team that's 17 games better, and a player who's playing a premium position of center field versus a corner outfield position at the plate. Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking at numbers, yeah, exactly. I mean, 406 to 357. But the weird thing with the 406, 400 wasn't that big of a deal back then. Nobody knew he'd be the last one to do it. I mean, Bill Terry just hit 400 a couple years before. And in the prior 20 years, 8 players have hit 400. So like that number, if Tony Gwynn had hit 400 back in, what was it, 94? Like, oh my gosh, the world would have exploded. Like, holy cow. And there was like Sports Center watches when he's hitting 398. It wasn't like that back then. And the 56 game hitting streak, Ted Williams had a better on base percentage or better OPS than DiMaggio had during that whole streak, but he obliterated the prior streak by 18 games, and no one's come close to it since either. And I guess back then, I don't know if they would have, if either number was as appreciated as it is now, almost 80 years later.
And here are the other factors that I think are in DiMaggio's favor. Is you talk about playing a premium defensive position, and he played it at an elite level. Williams got better defensively as his career went on, but he was never better than a serviceable left fielder.
And the other thing, and this is hard to say, but I think the market that they played in has to be like one played in New York. That's a big media era, even in the 40s. This reminds me of the what was the, I don't know if this was a real thing about the trade that the owners had on a napkin that they drew up in a restaurant.
Yes,
like,
I've heard that story.
What if I gave you DiMaggio and you gave me Williams? Imagine them hitting in our stadiums. Like back in the 40s, I think Yankee Stadium still had the monuments in center field, like the actual pillars that you had to play around. Yankee Stadium was not a friendly hitter's park at all,
and
especially for righties like DiMaggio.
And Yankee Stadium was always friendly to left-handed hitters, which you wonder what that would.
And Teddy was.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You wonder what that would have done to Ted's home run numbers.
I was looking up numbers for this, and it reminded me. It was a couple of weeks ago. I saw this video, like the what if neither DiMaggio nor Williams had to go to the service and do active duty. The 5 years that Williams lost, they ranked him. They gave him numbers like he would rank number one in, I don't know, it was like RBI or total bases or something. But he would only finish. He would be 7th all time in hits. He would fall right behind Derek Jeter, just because of the walks. Okay, that kind of surprised me a lot. Like I would have figured he'd been top 3. But
yeah, well, I mean, and you look at the 1941 season, he walked almost 150 times. He didn't have 200 hits that year.
Double DiMaggio. I think DiMaggio walked 70 times.
That's another thing that I think is funny, considering how the game's played now, is that, Ted Williams had abysmal strikeout numbers because he struck out twice as often as DiMaggio. He struck out 27 times to DiMaggio's 13. 13 strikeouts is like a 2-week stretch for Aaron Judge.
I was going to try to look up Aaron Judge really quick to see, like, Aaron Judge versus Ohtani, how many strikeouts they have.
Even in a series, like in a 5-game World Series, how many times did Aaron Judge strike out? Probably close to 10.
I don't know.
Between 5 and 10, I'm sure.
That's worth looking up. Especially this World Series. He wasn't an MVP, that's for sure. This is definitely a regular season award. His strikeout numbers against the Dodgers, in 23 plate appearances, he struck out 7 times.
Oh my God.
He did worse against Cleveland in the LCS, 23 plate appearances, 8 strikeouts.
Ugh.
18 plate appearances against the Royals, 5 strikeouts.
Yeah.
But if you go back though, Aaron Judge he's a guy, he strikes out a lot. I mean, his rookie year, 95 plate appearances, still 42 strikeouts. That's almost half. And
look, it's a different game because how many pitchers is Aaron Judge seeing over the course of 9 innings as opposed to what DiMaggio was seeing?
I don't know. You're a major league player. Put the ball in play, ground out. The difference between 1941 and 2024 and 25. 2 words. 4 words. Exit velocity, angle, whatever the target angle is. I lost it there. Launch angle. Yeah, that's what people care about now.
And I'll give you one more word that makes the game different. Integration. 1941, you're only playing against the best white players. There are no Asian, Latino, African American. So it's a bit of a limited talent pool that you're playing against in 1941.
I can see that. I don't care who you put in the league though. When you start, we worry about launch angle and exit velocity, that kind of stuff. Like your swing changes, and it makes it even harder to hit the round ball with the round stick. Again, They do it better than I do, and I just get paid to sit here and complain about it.
We're getting paid? Wait, they're paying you? Who's they?
Those guys.
Oh, them.
You have to send me your address. I'll send you your check.
Are you like a deposed Nigerian prince? I've heard this one before.
Show 14. Yeah, you just have to give me your credit card number. We'll add it too.
You already know my mother's maiden name.
Speaking of your mother's maiden name, that's a great segue, by the way. I was not able, due to factors we'll talk about later. I watched relatively zero college football yesterday, and the purveyor of your mother's maiden name, your cousin, I saw on the Book of Face, he posted something that said "Never in doubt," and okay, that's good for him. Interesting day in college football, week 13. First off, Penn State, never any doubt, ekes out a 1-point win at Minnesota. Did you see this game?
I only saw like the last 2 minutes because I was watching Michigan.
Aller must have had a big drive to get a touchdown because Minnesota had a halftime lead and then they had a fumble late. I guess that triggered something for Penn State.
And I know my social media has been blowing up about the fake punt call that Franklin had with like 3 minutes left. Where
I didn't see that.
Yeah, Penn State was up 1 with 3 minutes left, and they would have been giving the ball back to Minnesota, and instead called a pretty gutsy fake punt that went for a good chunk that let them continue to just sort of bleed the clock.
If that fails, we're talking about Franklin on the hot seat again.
Oh, absolutely.
Good call there. So I got home from my activities, and my dad called as I was doing some Hall of Fame research. So I'll blame him for my lack of Omar Vizquel as well. And he loves Kalen DeBoer. He just I can't describe. Kalen DeBoer might rank number 1 on his sport figures who he dislikes the most, and Alabama played like dogs against Oklahoma. And I think it was a look ahead syndrome because if you look, 4 big losses in the top 15, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, all SEC teams. So all kinds of chaos now in the SEC. And then BYU drops the game, which, I mean, wow there. But Alabama, my dad is still bemoaning the fact that they played music during practice in spring practice. That's why they're losing it. So he keeps talking about, they play music in practice.
Does he want him to go back to leather helmets?
I decided to go look it up because and I could only find information about Alabama playing music during spring practice, not like during Oklahoma practice.
Yeah.
And then Nick Saban ran the system differently. I said, well, Nick Saban's gone. Sorry. Like Jim Harbaugh's gone. We got Sharon Moore. So you play the hand you're dealt. You can't keep comparing Kalen DeBoer to Nick Saban. It's just it's not beneficial.
I don't think music played into that loss last night. I think turnovers. They couldn't do anything against that Oklahoma defense.
And they couldn't stop the run. Like if I were to tell you, okay, Alabama played Oklahoma and Oklahoma finished the game with 56 yards passing, how much does Alabama win by?
Right. You think 4 or 5 touchdowns.
They gave up 300 yards on the ground or so. Like, that's not an Alabama defense.
Yeah, that's not a Nick Saban Alabama defense anyway.
I'm not even sure that's a Kalen DeBoer defense. I don't know how bad they've been against the run against other teams, but like this is a 5-5 Oklahoma team we're talking about. This isn't like Ohio State coming in. This isn't Texas coming in. It's Oklahoma. Yeah,
and it seems like we're seeing I don't know if it's culture change from Saban leaving. I don't know if it's the teams that were in the top 4 last year. There's been a lot of disappointment in Michigan, at Alabama, even at Washington to some extent. Yeah, I haven't watched enough Alabama football to say definitively what the problem is, but they.
Oh, my dad has, and it's music in practice.
Obviously,
whenever they lose, if they get a big win, like they beat Georgia, they get up huge on Georgia, and then they let Georgia come back. That feels more culture-y to me. Where like, oh, we're up by 30, we're the stuff. That's like a culture thing to me. But Listen, my high school plays music during practice. They didn't make the playoffs though, so maybe that is a thing. Who knows?
I don't know. You give up 300 yards on the ground. That's either scheme or effort.
Or a little bit of both, or
Right.
or we're looking ahead. Like it's a look ahead thing. Like Texas A&M had Texas next week. Alabama's got the Iron Bowl next week. I don't know who Ole Miss has, but that another team who is in the running for a playoff spot that just crap the bed. And
yeah, and I've seen Florida a little bit this year and have not been impressed. So when I saw that Florida Ole Miss score,
Florida had a really, really tough schedule this year. They really did. Might have been the toughest of all the SEC schedules.
And obviously, I'm not a Penn State fan, but I love how people keep trying to say that Penn State doesn't deserve to be a top 4, top 5, top 6. And they'd get run out of the SEC. What's the SEC done this year that's so impressive?
No, that's stupid. No. In years past, I mean, like we go back 7-8 years. People would say the SEC was far superior to the Big Ten, and I would say at the top of the conference you have Alabama, and then what? At the top of our conference we had Ohio, and then what? They were very similar. The SEC was way more top heavy. I think the Big Ten was stronger in the middle, and that used to show in bowl games. The Big Ten did very well against the SEC in bowl games. I think they're very similar. You look at the top of the conferences, you have the really good teams who, on a neutral field, Ohio versus Texas, it's probably a 50-50 shot about who wins and where. And speaking of that team, that Ohio team, you texted me while I was at what I was doing, and you said, who do you have in the game? You said 38-21. I told you, I said, I'm really pessimistic about Indiana's chances. I said 37-13. We got 38-15. That's the best I think I've ever done in guessing a score, and I'm not even sure it was that close.
It was not that close because Indiana scored late to make it look better. And your buddy Ryan Day did you a favor by scoring a meaningless touchdown when Cignetti's not calling a timeout. He's like, let's just let the clock run out. Let's go lick our wounds. And rather than take a knee inside the 5, Ryan Day's like, nope. No, they ran the brotherly shove. Like they were doing everything they could to get that 38th point for you. So thank you, Ryan Day.
I needed that. Burn the points now, and not next week. I mean, the other thing that sadly Ryan Day has to think about, the loss to Oregon, maybe the getting into the Big Ten title game. This is what the playoffs would look like right now, according to Bleacher Report. And Ohio State's still hanging on to that number 5 spot, except now they would have a different opponent. Boise State is out, or Boise State is up. I forget who was 12 for us last week, but Arizona State would be in. Indiana's still in the playoff, though. So I don't know. Should be. I don't know what they would do against Georgia. What's that?
I said Indiana absolutely should be as a one-loss team from a power conference if the season ends today.
They would get run off the field by Georgia.
Oh, 100%.
In this matchup. The matchup here that I was really intrigued in, Notre Dame, Tennessee. I like Army. Like when we have Army Navy, I root for Army because my dad was in the Army. I love watching them. Both Army and Navy running their option offense. Just it excites me at a strange level. But Notre Dame, Tennessee, I think would be a great game as fodder for Texas. Then Penn State, SMU. I mean, Penn State gets a win there, in my opinion. They'd be home. I don't know if you're allowed to white out a playoff game, but if they were smart, they would. I'd have a hard time going against chalk in the first round, except for the Georgia at Indiana game. Georgia rolls.
And I just have to say, I watched most of the first half of that Notre Dame game last night. I am very impressed with Notre Dame because I was not very bullish. I was not very bullish on Notre Dame after they lost earlier this year, a game that I watched, and they were just – what did they score, 16 in that game?
I saw
Something like that?
the only part of that game I saw the Army drive where they scored a touchdown and they called their quarterback Captain America, and
Yeah.
then he got in the end zone. So I'm like, hey, good for Captain America. But then I switched. I flipped on Alabama, and then I started doing my research. And then Notre Dame just obliterated them.
Yeah, I think it ended up 49-14, something like that.
Your final at Notre Dame was 49-14. It was at Yankee Stadium, I think.
It was at Yankee Stadium.
Our friend Chrissy was at that game. She's a Notre Dame fan, so she had a fun trip home, I guess. But as far as playoff seeding, that's where things would fall right now. If you were to look at the Big Ten, we'll start in the Big Ten. Big Ten title game situation would be Oregon and Ohio,
yeah,
because Indiana and Penn State each have one loss, and they both now have losses to Ohio. So tiebreaker wise, that's that. Unless another loss comes down the road for one of them, Oregon's in because they're 11-0. If we transition to the SEC, let me see what the SEC looks like here. That's a little different. I mean, Paul Feinbaum came out and said you might have a 3-loss SEC team in the playoffs if it's Georgia. Everybody else, he doesn't think that they're getting in. The SEC has Texas with 1 loss. Georgia and Tennessee each have 2. Off the top of my head, I don't know who has the tiebreaker between those two. Georgia has the head-to-head win, so it would be Georgia, Texas in the SEC title game right now.
And I would say of all those teams that I've watched play this year, if we're talking about them being perfectly healthy, Texas is the best team in the country.
You said that, and that
I still believe that
hasn't changed.
Yeah, and look, that's no slight on Oregon, and they mentioned on the Ohio State Indiana broadcast yesterday that the betting favorite for the national championship right now is Ohio State. So obviously a lot of things are up in the air and there are a lot of opinions. This seems like a perfect year for it to be the first year for a 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
Because could you imagine if we had to narrow this down to 4? This mess? Who would your 4 be? Oregon and Ohio State have to be there.
Oregon, Ohio State. God, it's hard not to say Texas at 10-1, but
what if Texas loses in the SEC title game in Ohio State?
Well, that's what if. I mean, it's right now. But, they've already lost to Georgia. That's the thing.
So, and what about Florida State? Oh, wait.
Florida State and Oklahoma have about the same chance of getting into the Final Four.
And I shouldn't talk garbage because Michigan only now became bowl eligible, so I'll limit my trash talk.
Oh my goodness, that's what. We'll just segue right there. All I want for Christmas really is a win this Saturday, but I'll settle for bowl eligibility. I was on one of the school buses yesterday, and checking the score at 3:30, 4 o'clock. They put a 50 burger up against Northwestern. Where was that offense all year?
As I was watching it, I was like once they got to 40, and I was like, wait, what? Scoreboards go that high? A lot of it was the defense played really well. They
another game without Will Johnson.
Yeah, well, and we talked about the need for better quarterback play. They got it.
Did they?
They did. And look, they didn't need Dan Marino back there yesterday, but they got efficient, relatively mistake-free play out of the quarterback. That I'll take it.
So for not seeing the game, how vanilla was the playbook?
Ahead of vanilla. The playbook was out of Vince Lombardi's. Everything they ran was between the guards. The push they got from their offensive interior, they were just running backs were untouched getting to the second level. It was beautiful, but it was basic.
What you would expect ahead of now? They again, like you said, they needed this game to be eligible for a bowl game, but their bowl game is really coming up on Saturday. At the end of the day, the game in Columbus, a place that in recent history, aside from 2 years ago, has not been very friendly to Michigan teams, even good Michigan teams. JT Barrett was still short. There's no way, there's no reason why Ohio would not be double-digit favorites at home. And I don't know what the opening line is, 23.5.
I didn't think it would be that
opening
high.
line right now.
I thought it might be around like 17 or something like that.
So we'll get your bets in now. Well, first of all, we'll build our way slowly. Can Michigan cover?
You know, I know it's a cliche, but in a rivalry game, sure they could.
Absolutely. Cool. We're in agreement. And now, can the unthinkable happen?
It's a tall task.
Can Michigan go into Columbus and actually win a game?
I mean,
I have a hard time saying no. I mean, that's the fan in me. That's my heart, not my head.
Yeah, I can't say absolute no, but I would say it's very unlikely.
I thought it was very unlikely 2 years ago, even like going into Columbus. Just because winning on the road in college football is hard. It just is. And
more so than the pros even.
Yes. Oh, absolutely more so. College Columbus is probably one of the top 5 toughest places to play. And throw in the fact that it's Michigan coming in. They've got 3 wins in a row. They're the reigning undisputed national champions, defending right now, at least for the next couple of weeks. Those fans are going to be really up for this. If Michigan wants to have a chance, this has got to be like Rocky versus Creed, or Rocky versus, you have to survive the first quarter. If Ohio goes out to a 21-0 lead after the first quarter, the game's over. It really is. You're not going to come back. But if it's 7-0 or 7-3 and you're in it, and then by halftime, if it's a 1-possession game or maybe 10 points, you have a chance, because I don't think Ryan Day is a great in-game adjuster. I think halftime would be a potential turning point for you, and you try to play the second half. If you tell me right now I could have 13-3 at halftime, I would take that.
Michigan absolutely has to ride the defense. They have to, hope that they get pressure on the quarterback, make him uncomfortable. And that's kind of Wink Martindale's MO. If they can do that, not even sacks, just like hurries and hits. And like you said, if it's 10-0, if it's 10-3, 13-3, then that stadium gets very anxious. That locker room gets very anxious for Ohio State. I think that is the very specific path to victory, if there is one for Michigan.
If there is one, yeah. So I don't know if so. Will Johnson's a question mark. He hasn't played much, and I don't know if he's hurt or if he just looked at this season as, well, it's a lost season. We're not going to make the playoffs, and I'm not going to risk my NFL stock, which is totally his call. If he wants to push to the NFL, I'm not going to say anything about him. But if there was a game to come back for, it would be this one.
Does Tim Biakabatuka have eligibility? Can he come back? Does he have another 307 yards in him?
I'm trying to figure out how old he might be. He might be 40.
Let's say he was 21 in 96. So
he's about our. He was a little older than us. Then he might be.
He's 50. Probably close to 50. Yeah. 51 years old.
So next week, if we get to do a show next week, our top 5 should definitely be top 5 favorite Ohio State Michigan moments, and that's definitely got to make our lists. That day was something else, but that's a little bit down the road. We'll see what's going on now in terms of playoffs. Division I. Just for FBS, whatever they're talking about. This is the first year they're really having a multi-team playoff. It's been done in District 2, in Division 2 and 3 for years. And in Division 2 right now, the brackets are out. And this week we had Slippery Rock playing New Haven. New Haven, a big name in Division 2 football, by the way, at least in years past. Slippery Rock gets past them. Ashland, big upset. Upset alert. The 11-0 Charleston, West Virginia squad drops a 2-point loss to Ashland, 40-38. Massive. Amazing. And then Grant Hoppel and the California Vulcans knock off East Stroudsburg on the way to their like regional Final Four. There's like 4 different regions in Division 2, and it's geographic, so we'll call this the Eastern region. Kutztown, the PSAC champions, now with a rematch against Slippery Rock, Ashland, California. I know nothing more than this is what the bracket is, but Division 2 has had a bracket for a long time, so that's really cool. What do you think?
Not knowing too much about these teams, but now Cal beat Slippery Rock in the regular season. Is that Slippery Rock's one loss, I believe?
I think.
I don't know. It's tough to beat Slippery Rock twice in the same season is going to be tough. I personally think Slippery Rock comes out of this.
I'm going for Cal just because I coached one of their linebackers, but
truly all I know about Slippery Rock is like what I read about them in the lead up to BU week and then watching them against BU.
I thought it was nuts that an 8-3 Ashland team knocked off an 11-0 Charleston team. Playoff football is playoff football, and 40 to 38. That must have been a really cool game to watch.
That feels like a classic PSAC game where first 1 to 40 wins.
Yeah. So that's as quick a look as we can give you to the Division 2 football playoffs. We'll maybe talk a little football at the end because it is Sunday, but you sent this over, and I didn't look too much into it today, but the NBA is trying to make the All-Star game viable for whatever reason. What's this pickup style that they're going to do this year?
So basically what they want to do is they have the Rising Stars game where it's like rookies against like second-year guys. The winner of that game would be one of the teams that enters a 4-team tournament at the All-Star game. And then the other 3 teams would be 8-player teams made up of your 24 All-Stars, regardless of conference.
Okay.
And
so
then
how are they picking teams?
That has yet to be determined. This is still kind of in the proposal stage.
But it's this year's All-Star game that they're doing this for.
I think it's for the 2025-26 season.
Oh, next. Okay. When I saw 2025, I thought it was actually like this year. Like normally, like changes like this have to be made 5 years in advance. We have to have a congressional committee. We have to have all kinds of like. I usually get a pamphlet in the mail. Like, is this what you want? Like,
they do have a committee. There are some players like I know Steph Curry's on the committee.
Steph Curry, I was on it, but.
And that's a good. I mean, I don't know. It feels rushed to have this in place for February. I'd imagine the way they're going to pick the teams is the way they had been doing it, where you're going to have appointed captains who then select.
Which is weird. So, like, I remember asking you. Remember how we used to pick teams that I believe this is this might be Beach Street Playground on the screen right now.
That looks like Beach Street.
But how do we pick teams back in the day by hitting foul shots? I hit one, I go on team A. Well, the next person goes to team B. When you have captains, there's like hard feelings sometimes. Like, dude, why didn't you pick me first? Or why am I the last pick?
Yeah, there were a couple years where Nikola Jokic was the last pick. And, some people thought that might have led to some hard feelings, particularly when the Nuggets were making their title run, that he was going on a bit of a revenge tour.
So, I mean, is that something, do you want to be a captain for something like this? I don't know if I would.
Yeah, it seems like it would be potential drama that you don't need. Whether it's you don't pick a teammate, that kind of stuff. Like, could you imagine if Jason Tatum's a captain and he doesn't pick Jaylen Brown?
They care, though. That's the thing. The only drama
it becomes a thing in the media. It becomes a distraction.
The only drama this game has produced in the last 20 years is, will there be a team that hits 200 points? And we got that one. And now that we've gotten that, is there any drama left?
I think it's kind of a fool's errand to try to make the NBA All-Star game relevant. The players rightfully don't want to get hurt. In an era of load management, why are they going to go all out? No one's diving for loose balls or jumping over the scores table.
So if you were to look at, I know zero about hockey, so we're going to leave them out. If you look at the 3 other professional All-Star games, in football, when it's played at the end of the year, you're banged up. Although there used to be a time, I remember when we were in junior high and in high school, I remember watching it in Honolulu with Joe Theismann calling the game on ESPN. There was hitting. Like, it was something. But now I
remember
totally
when Sean Taylor lit up? Who was the punter?
Was it Sean Landetta?
I forget who it was, but Sean Taylor trucked that poor dude.
But if that was Eddie George running at him, is he making the same effort?
Probably not.
No, I mean, I get that. Baseball's biggest issue is you don't want to burn out pitchers. If you brought up 30 rando AAA pitchers, like every team gets to send 2 AAA pitchers to the All-Star game as just, fodder. That changes that game because you don't want to see your big pitcher blow his arm out.
What if in the Major League All-Star game, each inning they would send out a different pitcher Royal Rumble style that you didn't know who it was going to be, and they would just have to run out.
They're warming up below the dugout, like they have those for rain delays if pitchers want to keep loose.
And they run out in like a luchador mask, and then they come out to the mound and they're I
love that.
You're facing Paul Skeens.
Paul Skeens. Like I said, you put up guys that if they blow their arm, you don't want anybody to blow their arm out, but. All right, Paul Skeens pitching in an All-Star game. His mechanics are wonky. He looks like a Tommy John surgery waiting to happen.
Yeah.
The velocity he puts on the ball, the
torque
elbow thing that he does. I don't want him pitching in an All-Star game. I want him pitching for the Pirates if I'm a Pirate fan. But if we pull out, random number 4 AAA pitcher, and they get to give them $100,000 to come up and pitch, and you get an inning. It's just one inning. So if every team sends one minor league pitcher, that's 30 pitchers that you have for a 9-inning game. That game becomes more tenable. But basketball and football, there's less defense played in those 2 games combined than there would be in an average Solo Sereni game that we played in the summer.
Yeah, in basketball and football, it's almost like there's a gentleman's agreement. Like, I won't injure you. Please don't injure me. Let's all get out of here. Let's get our max contracts after the season. And it's understandable.
What does a ticket cost to an NBA All-Star game?
Oh, my!
Because you're not going to see the game. You're just going to see the players, maybe get a picture. That's a glorified meet and greet, right?
Essentially. I would have to guess that even the cheapest seats probably start north of $200.
2020. Well, let's our sponsor, Blank Seats. We can get NBA All-Star tickets. Wow.
What are we talking?
$1,127
for the worst seat.
I don't know. It was just that's where they start.
Does it say what section or anything like that? I'm not paying $1,000 for that. I'll watch it at home and order a pizza for $20.
We could talk about the most money we spent at a sporting event. Not surprisingly, the most money I spent was on a World Series ticket. But dude, that was a World Series ticket, not an All-Star game where, again, you're going to see you'll see a bunch of alley-oops. You're going to see 175 3-pointers. And I like the fact that they're trying to do something. I like the pickup little 4-man tournament that they're going to play to 40, I think. So
kind of like PSAC football.
Like PSAC football, yeah. That's neat. We used to say, what did we used to say? Play to 150 was halftime. So if the score was 90-60, the team who had 60 was all right, the hell with this. We're just done.
Yeah.
And then we'll end the game. We'll start another one, or we'll go shoot dice up at the pavilion. If one of these games gets to that point, if it's 32-18, you gotta want. If the 18 team comes back, it's neat, but I don't know if it's watch worthy, and it's certainly not $1,000 worthy.
I think that's the most likely scenario is that you'll see one team get up big, and then the other team starts jacking threes. If they think it's going to turn into Game 7 of the finals, it's not.
I don't know if that's what they're going for. I think they're throwing stuff against the wall, trying to make it stick, trying to make it relevant, when they should almost be doing the exact opposite. At least in the NFL, we don't talk about the Pro Bowl here, but the Pro Bowl should be gone. There should be no game. It should be 100% like skills competition, because going up to the game in Honolulu, ESPN used to broadcast this. The skills competition was fun to watch, and you could see people getting into this, like Larry Allen bench pressing 225 pounds 50 times.
Yeah, or the old quarterback challenge, like just to see who throws it the farthest, who's the most accurate.
Oh, the accuracy when they had like the targets going back and forth.
Yeah, with the powder on the end of the ball.
They ended that with flag football in the sand. That's an injury waiting to happen. And
it was an injury. I forget who it was that
somebody get hurt doing that.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad leg injury.
Yeah, so I don't know. And like I said, the NBA is trying. It's not going to make me want to watch anymore. And you're a bigger basketball fan than I am. Is it going to make you watch anymore?
No, look, I'll watch regardless, just so I have something to complain about. But,
Random Sunday night in
February.
January? February?
Yeah, it's like not long after Valentine's Day, like mid-February.
There you go. So, I mean, Valentine's Day for me will be spent at my wife's school helping her with the drama club musical she's doing, the Little Mermaid, which, hey, we'll talk about the Little Mermaid later, I guess.
You really are the king of the segue.
Good A block today, Mr. Hare. Today's B block starts everybody's favorite time of the week, Soup and Meatballs draft time. Earlier this week, if you didn't know, UConn Lady Husky basketball coach Gino Auriemma notched win number 12-17. They had a 44-point drubbing of Fairleigh Dickinson. And a lot of people, at least in media world, said, is he the greatest coach of any team ever? And I thought to myself, what would Tim say? So we thought we could draft coaches that we would want to run our teams. We are fortunate enough to have a sports franchise in every sport imaginable. We have presence, but we need a coach. And I need my deck of cards and my producer earpiece. I haven't been able to talk to him all day. So let's get the cards out. You can see we got all kinds of different ones here. So you just tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Right there. Okay, so red or black or green?
I'm going with Wesley Snipes again. Give me that black. Wesley let you down.
Let you down. So 6 of hearts for me. So now this is tough because I could go a lot of different ways here.
It's funny. Mine was, I thought it was going to be more expansive over different types of sports. It's really just limited to a couple.
Yeah. So I'm, let me mark down here my 1 through 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I rank yours. So I'll tell you what, I started watching, I'm going football. I started watching football back in 1990, and Super Bowl 25 was, imagine that being your first Super Bowl that you watched. It was incredible. And the more I was able to dissect why the New York Giants were able to slow down that offense was based on their defense. And I'm going to take a guy who knows that side of the ball really well and who had like a little bit of success as a head coach himself. I'm going to start with Bill Belichick.
He was number 1 on my list as well. And I will say
no defending necessary.
I will say that my list is strictly football and basketball.
Okay.
I'm surprised. I thought maybe Scotty Bowman from hockey would make my list, or a baseball manager, but no.
I don't know hockey at all. So the hockey team that I own is really just there for the money.
Right. You're doing it for the fame and glory.
I'm going to draft coaches I'm comfortable with their sport. I mean, I didn't grow up watching hockey. The next segment we're going to talk about something, and I'll mention, I'm not really comfortable with that because I just didn't do it, and I know that doesn't make sense now, but it might later. I'm comfortable with football, so I figured I'd take arguably the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and obviously I think that's a great pick because he was going to be my number one as well.
I stole one. Haha. Thank you.
You make a great point about him from Super Bowl 25, but I don't think enough people talk about the job he did when they beat the Rams and they slowed down the greatest show on turf, which was kind of a similar assignment to shutting down the K-gun Buffalo Bills.
That I think he had a lesser defense in New England too.
Yeah,
than he would have had in New York.
Because he didn't have LT and Harry Carson and Pepper Johnson.
But I also think the Bills offense that year versus the greatest show on turf, because it was so unique and it was a new thing back then. They scored 50 points in a conference championship game. They were amazing.
I also don't think Mike Martz, for as innovative and offensive coach as he was, I don't think he was a great head coach. I think he was a little too arrogant. I don't think he wanted to stray from what he thought should work.
He came in the year he came in to run the
stubborn.
Bears offense. The year he came in to run the Bears offense was a big decline in that roster because he didn't like tight ends. They got rid of Greg Olsen, who was one of the best tight ends in football. So
yeah.
Who's your number one, Tim?
Well, I'm also going football, and I'm going with someone who's number 2 on my list. He didn't have much success in the NFL, but he sure had a lot of it in college. Give me Nick Saban.
Nick Saban was on my list. If I'm going to pick somebody to run a college football program, he had success everywhere he went. I mean, he made Michigan State relevant. He won a national title at LSU. He's the greatest coach in Alabama history, arguably. Record-wise, and that's not to say that if you gave Bear a couple $1 million, could he have brought different players in? You'll never convince me otherwise. But yeah, I mean,
and just because he didn't have success in the NFL, there are a lot of coaches who are great in college who don't do well in the NFL.
Urban Meyer, or not making my list just because personal feelings, but he absolutely destroyed Trevor Lawrence.
Or likewise, where you have guys in the pros who then, maybe don't go to the college game and don't do so great.
The Pete Carrolls of the world are rare.
What's that?
The Pete Carrolls of the world are rare.
And Pete Carroll wasn't Pete Carroll at first either because he didn't do so well with the Jets and the Patriots.
So, I'm cool with Nick Saban. That's a win for you.
Yeah, I think they're 1A and 1B on most people's lists.
Yeah. So I will preface this by saying I only chose coaches that I saw.
Okay.
So while
I also have a fairly modern bias to mine.
So while he may not be the greatest of the league he coached in, what Phil Jackson did in my lifetime, and you need players to do it, and but he got the best out of those players. 3 3-peats. I'm going to take the Zen Master, Phil Jackson.
This might shock you. He did not make my list. I've never bought into the whole happy-feely, let's read a book about Zen Buddhism. It'll make you a better rebounder kind of.
I don't know if that ever worked either. He just won a lot of games.
He did. I will say I have 3 NBA guys on my list instead of Phil Jackson.
Wow. Well, you're more of an NBA guru than I am, so I should have said Phil for 5th.
And I mean, I like Phil Jackson. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a top 5 coach in NBA history. I've just never been as big on him as some people. Like, what did he do in New York? When he didn't have Shaq or Kobe or Michael or Scotty.
He wasn't coaching then. He was like the superintendent of player commitment to. But he wasn't coaching.
He ended up being the superintendent of player dysfunction, is what he was in New York.
Yeah. So no, I think a lot of if you look at a lot of coaches are made better by the better players. Like, is Bill Belichick if he doesn't have Tom Brady or Lawrence Taylor? I don't know. He's not coaching Pepper Johnson up to be the greatest defensive player of all time. Is Phil Jackson without Jordan and Kobe? No, obviously not. But I don't think Nick Saban is Nick Saban without all of the great defensive players he brought into Alabama. He didn't turn Michigan State into a national power. He just made them relevant in the Big Ten.
And also, to his credit, he recognized the potential benefits of running the triangle, which no one else was doing, and which, for a team that didn't really have great centers, maximized what the Bulls could do on offense.
So there you go. Good deal. Who's your number 2?
I'm also going basketball with my number 2 pick. I'm not a fan of the program this guy led, but I am a fan of the success he had. And I'm also one of the few people being half Polish who can spell his name. I'm taking Mike Krzyzewski.
Oh, okay.
It's Krzyzewski, by the way.
YZ. Okay, I missed that. Whatever. I know who it is. Program wise, so let's get this out. When we were in 7th grade, I liked Duke. I think Bobby Hurley was one of my top favorite players of all time.
That was me with Grant Hill.
Bobby Hurley, Lawrence Moten, Adrian Autry, Jalen Rose. Oh yeah, all of them were. But Bobby Hurley, when Leitner hit the big shot against Kentucky in
the old Spectrum in Philly, by the way,
in the '92 regional, I remember Grant Hill threw the pass, Leitner hit the shot. But my dad, trying to make me feel better, he's like, "Do you know Bobby Hurley called the timeout?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." I think everybody called it timeout, but no. So what Mike Krzyzewski was stubborn about the one and dones until he wasn't, and then when he started bringing in guys who would fall into the one and done mode, Duke started winning again in the NCAA tournament. They had those years where they'd get bounced by teams they shouldn't get bounced by.
And they also had those lean years where he was dealing with some health issues. He had back problems where he would miss games. He took a leave for an entire season.
You know what impresses me the most about him, though? Not his work in college, his work with USA Basketball. Because here's a guy who's used to coaching college players, and it's like Bull Durham, just yell at him, scare him, right?
Yeah.
Most college players, even the big top ones, you get Krzyzewski yelling at you. He's an alarmy guy. He's from the Bob Knight tree. But you can't pull that with LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or Tim Duncan. And those guys, the big name guys, bought into what he was saying because he was such a good coach. I think that might be more impressive to me than anything he's done with at Duke.
It definitely shows how he is able to adapt his style to the situation. That he doesn't try to force a style that's worked into every situation. Because you're right, you don't coach an incoming freshman the same way that you coach like you said, LeBron James or Tim Duncan or whoever.
Or I think, oh my gosh, you could make a documentary out of the coaching Krzyzewski with Kobe Bryant. That was a really good relationship. Those two really jived because I don't think Kobe could be coached hard enough. So if
you haven't seen it, the documentary Redeem Team about the 08.
I did see that.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
So good deal. Two college guys. That's interesting. So I have a wide array of choices I can go with here, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to continue a rhyming thing I have going unknowingly, and I'm going to go back to football again, and I've taken maybe the greatest defensive mind we've seen, and I'm going to switch sides of the ball and take someone who has revolutionized the offensive side. I've got a Bill Belichick. I've got a Phil Jackson. I'm going to take a Bill Walsh.
Yeah, I was wondering when he was going to come up because the West Coast offense absolutely changed the way the game was played. Certainly in the '80s, but variations of the West Coast, I mean, are still sort of like
The tree
branching
is
out.
still out there, and Andy Reid, I think, is the latest of those that rank. I don't know who else would be on the list, but Nick, there was a big talk of when Andy Reid was in Philadelphia, how he was running, something similar. It's not easy to just create a brand new offense, that's still running years later.
Especially at the point when Walsh came to the NFL. They'd been playing NFL football for like 60, 65 years at that point when he got to San Francisco. And he brings this, wonky idea with him from Stanford about, no, we're going to trust our receivers to run with it after the catch. We're going to put them in positions where they'll have a little cushion when they catch the ball and they can decide what to do with it. We're going to keep it short. We're not Air Coryell. We're not going to attack downfield. Our receivers are going to get downfield. They're going to be ball carriers, 5 yards past the line of scrimmage.
And
It's going to be a lot of
quick
screens.
outs. You don't put a lot of pressure on your offensive linemen to pass block for 6 seconds.
Yeah, and I mean, even after he left, because he was there a relatively short time, but he wins the 3 Super Bowls in the '80s, and then they win 2 more without him with George Seifert. Essentially running the same offense.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're right, because you look at then Walsh gives you Seifert, he gives you Holmgren gives you Reed.
Green Bay.
John Gruden was a West Coast guy.
18 Spider Y banana, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Every Lombardi trophy of the last 40 years to some degree has Bill Walsh's fingerprints on it.
You should probably clean that off then. Those are shiny.
Yeah, especially during COVID. Not safe. I'm staying in college, and I'm going with someone who's a little before our time, but I'm going with John Wooden.
Okay, so I looked at John Wooden, and he broke my rule of I didn't see him. I have no problem with you taking him. Absolutely, probably the dean of college coaches besides Dean Smith.
And
another guy who just his recruiting ability, he had talent out the, what do they call it, the wazoo.
And you have to think about what a regional sport college basketball was in the '60s.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to land a recruit like then Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from New York City,
that's hard to think about. You're not wrong.
That was revolutionary at the time. And he ended up being, to this day, the greatest college basketball player ever. And you talk about another top 5 college basketball player ever, Bill Walton's right up there. To win 88 straight games, to win, 10 titles.
Amazing. That's amazing.
And it was a different era. I think it was easier to go on a dominant run, particularly in conference play.
You could say the same thing about, Geno's women's Huskies winning 101 in a row, and how many undefeated national championships in a way. Like, because the level of competition. You're Division I college basketball players. Like 88 in a row is insane for men's D1. It's that there's nothing to defend there. That's a great accomplishment.
And also, like, not even just him as a recruiter, but you listen to the way that, like, Kareem and the way that Walton would talk glowingly about the way that he really was like a teacher to young men, like the way he taught the game and taught the kind of culture he wanted at UCLA. Give me some of that. Give me some John Wooden.
I have no qualms with that. I know you said you didn't take any baseball, so I could just hold on to this guy, but he was ranked number. I gave myself like rankings of every sport. I put Major League Baseball down number 4, so I'm at number 4, and it may surprise you a little bit. where I'm going, but I think success-wise, this guy he would have been successful in a lot of places. I think he could have been successful in New York. I like Tony La Russa. I would pick him to run my team.
And I also like Tony La Russa. I know one of the criticisms of him is that he overmanages, but look at the results. He's won everywhere he's gone.
I don't think. Yeah, I think that might be based on the rosters he's had. You know, he was the first big guy with the whole lefty righty thing. I know, but in today's game where you can't do that, I don't think that would hurt him. Like you said, he's won everywhere he went. And if I had to pick, there were two. I was between two guys in baseball, and neither one of them managed the Yankees. But I picked two guys who I think could have managed the Yankees back then. I like La Russa. I would have taken him every day, twice on Sunday.
Like if La Russa,
today is Sunday, I'll take him twice.
If La Russa only had what he did in Oakland, or if he only had what he did with the Cardinals, he would still be in the Hall of Fame in either one of those career spans. But the fact that the same man did both things, I think, speaks really highly about his skill as a manager.
And again, just like all of our other managers, he had great players both places. But were they great because of him or in spite of him? Who knows?
I would be inclined, because at least in Oakland, St. Louis was more a situation where it was already good and he walked into it. Oakland was a situation where they drafted and developed a little bit, where they drafted the Cansecos and the, McGuires and, Walt Weiss and Terry Steinbach and those guys. That was a team that was more built, in the sort of classic pre-free agency sense. It happened during free agency, but none of those guys were like big splashy signings.
And the big series I remember with La Russa, 1990. Again, I started getting into sports. He beaten by another really good manager, Lou Piniella, but Lou Piniella did not make my list. Just
if we were drafting coaches we want to hurl second base into center field, he's I don't even know who the second pick would be.
Bobby Cox, maybe.
Maybe Earl Weaver. He could throw a temper tantrum with the best of them.
Who was the manager of the Braves AAA? Oh, it was the minor league manager video. I'd always see it where he built up a mound of dirt on home plate and then got behind it and threw the rosin back like it was a grenade.
I remember when Earl Weaver died, and I said to my one friend, I was like, it's going to take a long time to bury him for all the mourners to kick dirt into the grave.
Oh, good times.
So for my next one, I'm going with another one that's a little before our time. He's not someone who's considered necessarily an innovator on either side of the ball. But when you think of a football coach, he's maybe one of the first people who comes to mind for a very good reason. It's Vince Lombardi.
Oh, look at, come on now. This reminds me of the one draft we had where there was the no-brainer number one that you got number 4. Oh, shoot. You can go back and watch the videos on YouTube. Yeah.
He didn't do anything innovative. He was just running, solid, fundamental 1960s football.
Man. Pull the two guards and
create a seam here and a seam here. Yeah, but another one where you can't really argue with the success. I mean,
they named a trophy after him, so
and he's another one. He wasn't able to replicate the success when he went to Washington after he left Green Bay. But I mean,
if you're starting a team and you have your team, run by Josh Allen and whoever else you picked, I think he might have success there, maybe just a little.
Yeah, he might do all right.
I don't feel that's a stretch. So without having much else to say about your number 4, my number 5, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's a smart pick.
That's how I feel
And,
about my number 5. My number 5 is going to be divisive.
but I'm gonna go to college, and I'll tell you some of the other guys I had on my list. I'm gonna go to college, and today it's definitely a more potentially controversial pick. He is currently coaching, but I think he's had more success in the state of Kentucky. I'm going to take Rick Pitino, and only because he survived a lot of scandals. He's a weird name, but he can coach and he can recruit, and he can bring in guys to play for 1 year.
For a second, I thought you were going to say Bobby Knight until you said he's still coaching.
Yeah,
because when you said controversial, but successful college, but Pitino, what he did at Kentucky was amazing. What he did with the Boston Celtics, less amazing. But then to go to Louisville in a program that was pretty.
I think it was his time at Louisville. I think that's what would have won it for me, because when you do brackets, like when you do your March Madness brackets, I usually pick coaches, or I was told coaches and point guards, and Rick Pitino won a lot in March.
And he looks like a character from a movie, like where the script calls for like an evil looking college coach, which he turned out to be, because he's corrupt as the day is long. But I don't know how he's still led to coach. Like everything he did at Louisville.
St. John's now, I think, right?
Yeah, he's at St. John's.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't know like how well St. John's did last year, or how well they're doing already.
Probably not very good.
Yeah, he's got his work cut out for him at St. John's.
And like I said, when you hear some of the other coaches, there's probably better coaches I could have picked, but I wanted a college coach that wasn't the other college coach on my list, because I really didn't see a lot of that guy. But
I'm curious, who was the other?
So the other guy. Oh, there was 2 college coaches on my list. So the other guys that made my list: Greg Popovich, Sparky Anderson, Roy Williams, and somebody. Maybe I feel bad that I didn't draft, because of he was just amazing at his level. Eddie Robinson.
Yeah, because I looked at a couple different lists to see if there was anyone I was forgetting, like someone obvious, and he was routinely like a top 5 on a lot of people's lists. You named my number 5, who I do think is the best coach in NBA history, and that's Greg Popovich. To build what he built in San Antonio, like he and it helps when you have David Robinson there, and then you also get the number 1 pick when Tim Duncan's available.
And you get Tim Duncan.
But they built that from the ground up. Like I
Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, though, like those aren't big names, and he built a dynasty.
He was one of the first guys to buy into the merits of looking to like outside the U.S. for talent, because everyone, I forget what it might have been after they won the title in 2003, and everyone was pushing for them like, oh, go sign Jason Kidd, you need a point guard. And he's like, no, I'm going to go draft this French dude and turn him into a Hall of Famer.
Go draft this French dude.
Yeah. And like look at like who knew Manu Ginobili? And if he played anywhere else, he could have been like a 24, 25 point per game guy. But instead, he ended up being like the perfect role player. And he also ended up in the Hall of Fame.
And you bought into the system. You get players to buy into your system, then yeah.
And I'm so excited. I know Popovich had the stroke a couple weeks ago. I hope he comes back. I hope he's healthy, because I want to see how he helps Victor Wembanyama develop. I want to see that relationship, that working relationship, continue.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Looking at your list, not shocking, 3 basketball, and the all-timers, your sandwich, your Krzyzewski, Wooden, Lombardi, amazing, really good.
Well, it's tough to have a bad pick.
It is. I mean, And amazingly, neither one of us picked someone in women's college basketball. Are you a Gino guy or a Pat Summitt guy?
I'm a Gino guy.
I like Gino just because he's a Paisan, but Pat Summitt was a warrior. She was a beast.
Pat Summitt was the John Wooden of women's basketball. And then I would say Gino's the Mike Krzyzewski. Where Summitt was winning when it was still like a regional sport. It was post-Title IX and trying to figure out how to navigate those waters. And then Gino got to see the blueprint that was laid down, just like Krzyzewski did with Wooden, and got to build on it.
The UConn-Tennessee games were, those were battles when they were both relevant.
Yeah, like when they were right at the same level, where Tennessee was starting to maybe decline a little, and UConn was on the like Rebecca Lobo era UConn, and like Shameik Beholdska level or era like Tennessee.
Good times, man. Good deal. Well done drafting. I'm sure the internet will find you the winner again.
Did we get any feedback on Bacon? Was Bacon a winner?
No, Bacon was not a winner. It's a good segue there. Speaking of Bacon, as we head into this week, something's coming up on Thursday. Something?
Maybe my favorite holiday,
Thanksgiving. There it is. So, in a timely top five, we thought it might be interesting to talk about. You had said food, but it was like, are we doing too much food? No, I don't think so. I mean, that's what the people are tuning in for. We narrowed it. We expanded a little bit though about our top favorite things overall about the day / holiday, whatever. Top 5 favorite things about the Thanksgiving holiday season. So you can go a lot of different places with this. So let's see where you lead us off with your number 5.
And I will say, like to say food, like just in general, was not the option. Like for me, like I picked like specific foods. There are 2 specific foods on my list.
I mean, food. There's a food on my list, and it is very specific.
My number 5 is something over the last few years that I've now watched every year on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It is, to my mind, the no doubt about it greatest Thanksgiving movie. It is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. One of my favorite things about Thanksgiving. Steve Martin, John Candy, love it.
The movie didn't make my list, but yeah, I can't complain with that. I've only seen it once, and it was so long ago. I should probably pull it out again.
It might be on Amazon Prime
because John Candy is a national treasure.
Yeah,
and Steve Martin is a national treasure. Yeah.
It was such an inspired choice to take Steve Martin, who could be like very broad, and you look at him in a movie like like The Jerk or something like that, and to make him the subdued straight man, and let John Candy be the wild guy, the more overtly funny one.
What year was that? Do you remember?
1987.
Okay. That was about the time Steve Martin was doing his weird and wild stuff.
Yeah.
Good deal, man. So my number 5 is actually a more recent thing. So when you're growing up, you don't really get to help a lot in the kitchen, and you just get shooed away, and most of the time that's fine. But as I've gotten older and not quite in charge yet, I've started helping. So my in-laws do the dinner cooking, but every year more people are coming, and I think this year we're up to like 24. But we need 2 turkeys now. So my number 5, kind of, yeah. So my number 5 is actually going to be getting able to cook the Thanksgiving turkey, like do the work and actually build the bird.
That's a good one. I also like cooking. I'll be doing some cooking this Thursday, and I just love the way it makes like the house smell and just like that feeling of warmth from the oven.
I'm a stuffing snob, and that's where you get the good smell. I could live on stuffing, and my mother-in-law does the de-gutting, which is nice. So I get the easy stuff. But then, so the first year I helped, I'd never made a turkey before because, why would I? And she explained to me, she's like, you have to, every 20 minutes or so, you open the oven, you baste it. So I have a baster, and I'm getting ready. I got my bare hand with this squeezy thing, and I squeeze the hot juice into the thing, and it comes up into the rubber ball, burns the heck out of my hand. Like, you live and learn when you cook in the kitchen. I now have a glove.
Yes. Yeah, that is a must. And also, do you brine your turkey? Oh, okay.
Not yet. I mean, again, I'm working on her recipe. I haven't researched cool ways to do this. Like nowadays, one of the cool things is to deep fry it and try not to blow up your driveway.
Yeah, that's essentially like a pipe bomb.
Don't put a frozen turkey in a deep fryer. Bad
and so many
idea.
people do.
That's every day on the 3rd of July, our buddy Matt Chisnell put something online that says today's the last day someone's going to have 10 fingers. It's the same thing at Thanksgiving. Today's one of the last days someone will have their left ear.
So I went with a food for my number 4, and I went dessert. And I know when you think Thanksgiving, you think pumpkin pie or apple pie, but my favorite, give me some of that chocolate pecan pie.
Pecan.
What's that? Oh yeah, that pecan pie.
Chocolate pecan pie. Okay. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never had chocolate pecan pie.
Oh.
Ever.
Little slice.
But I'm also a strange bird in that dessert wise, I'd rather another bowl of stuffing than
typically
any pie. I don't like pumpkin anything. I
love pumpkin pie, which is odd because the texture, I don't like pudding or jello. Like you would think the texture of pumpkin pie because it's almost like custard. But no, I love it.
I've had it once. So when Jen's grandmother, she was at a retirement home, we would go visit. They had their Thanksgiving dinner on Tuesday or something. So we would go, and I remember the one year I was just beyond hungry, and it was here's your one plate, you get it. But they gave you a pumpkin pie for dessert. I ate it. I needed 6 dollops of whipped cream on it though to make it palatable. I only ate it because I was really super hungry. So I can honestly say I've had pumpkin pie. It's just not my thing. But you know what? If you like pumpkin pie and you're eating with me, you're going to get more of it. So
have you ever, and this is about apple pie now. I don't know, in the Midwest, they melt a slice of sharp cheddar cheese over their apple pie. Have you ever tried that?
No.
Me neither. I kind of wonder that because the sweet and salty might be good.
Maybe. Melted sharp cheddar though, just not a slice of it.
Yeah. You just melt a slice of cheese over your apple pie. Apparently,
I would try anything once, but I mean,
I would just prefer ice cream, to be honest. But
yeah, I mean, that's when we eat at the in-laws' house. My father-in-law has about 12 gallons of ice cream in the downstairs freezer. That's probably where I'll eat not all 12 gallons, but that's probably where my dessert will come from.
Right.
So now my number 4, I have some video for you. And we talked earlier in the show why I wasn't able to watch college football. I spent the day with my son. I did 20,522 steps. There's the proof. My son and I, I didn't have the picture up there. Oh, so we just have to go to the video. My son is in the high school marching band, and every year before Thanksgiving, they have the holiday parades. So check this out. My son decorated his trombone. This is the 3rd parade we were in where they had to decorate.
I'm not getting any picture.
Oh no! Well, it's out there, and You're marching down Main Street.
Wow, look at the lights too. That's fantastic.
I'll go back to my son's decorated trombone. You got that?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool it is. So we did 3 parades in our area, one in Greencastle, one in Waynesboro, and then one in Chambersburg. So one of my new favorite Thanksgiving things now, the holiday parade season with Derek, not Macy's Day, not the big balloons, that's, big time, the little one, because my son is a part of it and I get to be a part of it marching as a band dad. But 20,000 steps I'm tired today.
10,000 is usually roughly about 5 miles. So that's 10 miles that you walked.
I average about 9 a day, I think.
And that's a great segue to my number 3, which is the Macy's Parade.
I meant to do that. Oh, you like the Macy's Day Parade?
Love the Macy's Parade. Like, I watch it every year. This is why I love it. I love how it's like a mix of like sentiment and like kind of like cheesy showbiz stuff. Like last year there was a float and Belle Biv DeVoe came out.
BBD, nice.
And they performed Poison.
Poison.
And the float was like the storefront of a New York pizzeria. And then on the float there were 4 guys dressed as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles breakdancing. That is why I love the Macy's Parade. It's just like a mix of like cheesy showbiz stuff.
I have homework for you.
Corny and fun.
I have some homework for you after our show, before the NFL. Here's what you have to do. You have to get on some kind of channel that has video, because I'm sure it's there. And I want you to type in He-Man Macy's Day Parade. Okay. Because there was a He-Man versus Skeletor skit. And I think She-Ra might have been part of it. But it is cheesier than anything you'd want to put on apple pie. Oh my gosh.
There was something like that last year where it was like all the Marvel heroes. And it looked like they were in like store-bought costumes.
like the Times Square people, like they charge you $100 for a picture with them. Because like they have their heads sticking.
Right. Like the Hulk is like purple for some reason.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford the
Emu.com Hulk.
Yeah, and then like I'm a sucker for like when at the end when Santa Claus comes down, makes his way to Macy's. It speaks to the kid.
No, dude, no hate on that at all. So we'll watch. Maria loves the Macy's Day Parade. She likes the balloon. The balloons are fun. I hope they get good. I hope they get good weather. That's absolutely a worthy number 3. Not a problem there. My number 3. I'm growing up now. I'm elementary, junior high, shit, even to high school, whatever. I'm gonna pick the network specials that you see, like a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's a good one.
You'd be watching. You didn't know. We didn't have the button that said guide. You didn't know it was coming up. So you have ABC on just because, and you get the special. I'm like, whoa, there's a special coming on. And then you get like an hour of cartoons, whether it was like Charlie Brown or Garfield or Heathcliff or Marvin or Marmaduke, whatever. You'd get like a 30-minute classic like Charlie Brown, and then you get the 30-minute of whatever the new hotness was. Yeah, that was always fun.
And a corollary to that is I also loved when you would get like a Thanksgiving, like a special Thanksgiving episode of like a sitcom, like where like on tonight's Who's the Boss? Who's going to roast the turkey? Is it Tony or Angela? He's a man. How can he cook? Yeah, that's a very nostalgic memory for me too.
It was Mike Seaver bringing to the Growing Pains Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, no, that's one that hadn't occurred to me, but I like that one. And my number 2, by the way, is something that's already been brought up. It's stuffing.
Oh, stuffing! Come on now.
And I am not a stuffing snob. I will like stovetop. I'll eat it.
I didn't mean snob. I mean like I want 10 pounds of it.
Oh, so glutton is the word.
Glutton. There you go. So yeah, vocabulary is my strong suit today.
That should be the name of the podcast. Stuffing Gluttons. That sounds like a very different podcast now.
Meatballs and stuffing.
Yeah, like, and I also I have a weird quirk where I will like I love to eat hot food cold. Like I won't heat it up. And so
I
I will
just
just go right into the
ate
fridge and
cold
eat.
spaghetti a couple days ago.
I will eat those cold squares of stuffing like with my fingers like an animal.
That's how it's meant to be eaten.
Yeah, no shame. No shame here.
When I was in college, I'm working at a campus diner called one. They had like a lot of them, like a hub of eateries. There was a Burger King and ice cream place, but there was a place called Cranberry Farms, and they had stuffing there, and it was cheap college stuffing. It was great. It might be the best stuffing I've ever eaten. So that year for Thanksgiving, I remember coming home and my mom and dad were going down to Carl's house and he was doing Thanksgiving and they made this big deal that he got this gourmet stuffing. And I'm like, okay, I'm into it. And I ate it. I ate 3 helpings of it because why not? And I thanked, I said, oh yeah, this was very good, very good. It wasn't as good as Cranberry Farms. And like Cranberry Farms was like probably triple the sodium. And you throw a little bit of that gravy on there. It was amazing. But I've never met stuffing I didn't like.
Yeah, and it's funny because like it seems like every family has like their own. You wouldn't think there would be so many variations on something as simple as stuffing, but it seems like every family has like something like their own little twist on it.
So you were saying you pick it up by the square, which is weird because I used to have stuffing in ice cream scoops, so it was a ball.
Yeah, and yeah.
When my dad makes it, he actually still makes it like a meatball. It's a meatball of stuffing.
Yeah, my mom would make it almost like in a quiche, like a casserole dish,
Amazing.
like quiche style.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law stuffing is good. My dad's stuffing is pretty good. That old college Cranberry Farm stuff was just the best, which kind of leads me to number 2. So now I'm going into college, and Thanksgiving was like the 10-week point where I would get to come home and see my high school buddies again. So the time off school, like right now, it's more like, oh my gosh, as a teacher, I'm pushing the gas pedal for like a couple weeks, and now I get to take a day off, and like, oh my gosh, this is nice, I can sleep. But back in college, like especially the first year where like I'm finding my way, meeting new people. And I had I used to track NFL teams. Like, oh, when the Bears play their 10th game, I'm going to get to go home and see my buddies. And throughout the 4 years I was in school, being able to come back home, we would go up to Perkins and we would sit there for like 6 hours. Like I'm talking like we'd show up at 9:30 and leave at 3 a.m. I had about 5 pots of coffee myself. And I wasn't a coffee drinker, but for $1.25, you could drink all night long.
And it's funny because you don't like college is really the first time where you get an appreciation for your hometown.
A little bit.
Where like growing up and you're like, ugh, Hazleton, this place is a toilet. And then you go away to college and you come home and you're like, oh, like I'm gonna get a Jimmy's hot dog. It's like you're experiencing the place as like through like new eyes.
A tourist almost.
Yeah. Boy, that's a good one too. That hadn't occurred to me.
That's what I'm here.
I think we might have the same number 1 because mine is football.
Okay. Amazingly, we don't.
Oh wow. Yeah, I love getting up and watching that early. Watching the Lions. I can still remember watching the in '93 in the snow, the Cowboys and the Dolphins, and the
Leon
Lett game.
Leon, no, it had to be Leon Lett. It was the year after the Super Bowl Don Beebe fumble. Yeah, of course Leon was going to make. And this was back when the Dolphins were, really, really good, and the Cowboys they're going to knock them off, and our buddy Eric was going to have to shut up for the week because he was a Dolphins fan. No, Leon Lett gives him another chance, and Stojanovic hits the gimme field goal.
And it's funny because Leon Lett was a really, really good defensive lineman, and people only know him for those 2 things.
Slid into that like leg first. How? Come on.
What was he thinking?
I don't know. So, I mean, why football didn't make my list was probably more recency bias because the Bears have been bad. And I'm not a big, giant NFL fan. I get more into the NFL during the playoffs, obviously, because college football is kind of done. And, the playoffs are a different beast altogether. The opening game, I'm usually in the middle of getting the kids done with the parade or going to hook up the cooking for the day. And the night game, like the night game on NFL Network, sometimes like the in-laws and like the family will sit and we'll watch it. I have no problem watching the football. It just wasn't, it didn't hit the list. It might be number 6 on the list if I had to go to a top 10. Just the recency of how poor the Bears have been just takes a little bit of the shine off of NFL football. I do miss John Madden.
I was just going to say the turkey legs.
That's a great memory of like 90s football back when the Bears were, somewhat relevant. My number one.
I feel like Madden also introduced America to the turducken. I feel like no one knew what a turducken was until John Madden.
And who better than John Madden to introduce such a weird animal? So the linemen standing at the sideline after the game without their shoulder pads on, all eating the leg. Yeah. That's something that's good. You don't get that every week. So yeah, I'd make that 5B. But my number one is a food. It's a very specific food, and it's a food that you don't eat on Thursday, but you eat on Friday. I get 2 pieces of bread, 2 pieces of white American cheese, cold turkey that you salt a little bit, and you cover with stuffing. And then you make yourself a Black Friday cold turkey sandwich. And if you want to warm it up, you can. You throw a little bit of gravy on there. But like you said, sometimes the food is better cold. Cold stuffing, cold turkey, cheese, and salt. You get mayonnaise on the bread. That's a top 10. That's a top 5 sandwich for me. That might be a top 3 sandwich, honestly.
Yeah, and I go even simpler than you with my leftover turkey sandwich, where like the Milano Italian bread, like that every grocery store in Northeast PA has.
Yep, I got you.
Super soft Italian bread, loaded up with mayo, loaded up with turkey, maybe some tomato, because I'm a big tomato guy.
I don't know. Well, we don't have tomatoes around here, so not that day. Like I'd have to go to the store and buy tomatoes.
Like my mom always do to have tomatoes for me to put on my sandwiches.
That's good.
But yeah, maybe some light salt. But yeah, super simple.
That's as good a Thanksgiving memory as at least I can imagine. The first time my dad taught me, he's like, it's okay to eat turkey cold. Here, watch this. And I'm like, this is amazing. It's life-changing. It's great.
You know what almost made my list? It's not something I watch anymore, but it's something kind of like a nostalgic thing for me is Survivor Series.
Oh, come on. Oh, oh, shoot.
Rude's brood against the Hulkamaniacs.
If you get on the Talk Tick thing, Vince McMahon's promos of those, the only promos he's done better are these are the contestants in the Royal Rumble. But yeah, because they show up now, like, and then the pictures come up side by side, and Hulk Hogan, Jake Roberts, and Demolition. And in what world do those 4 men fight on the same tag team? But what the Survivor Series became was just another pay-per-view for singles matches. And no, those 5-on-5s or the 4-on-4.
That's what made it unique. And Survivor Series gave us the gobbledygooker.
It also gave us the Undertaker. So
that's true.
Oh boy. Oh man. Oh, we should have top 5 Survivor Series memories because They did so many great things. They had the Demolition, Power of Pain, Haste, heel face switch, the Bam Bam Bigelow versus King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, one-man gang end of that match. Like the 4 biggest guys in the ring at the same time. Oh, dude. Oh, that's good. I feel so irritated that I didn't think of that.
And that was another one where it was a good excuse to get together with your friends to like just be idiots for 3 hours.
Yeah, good times. The one thing that didn't make my list would have been because they don't do it much anymore. The old high school rivalry football games, like Hazleton West Hazleton, was a big Thanksgiving Day game, and my dad would tell me it's like the stories that you get because you don't get them anymore.
Yeah, I know.
The
Like
regional
Easton and
rivalry game.
Phillipsburg used to have their Thanksgiving Day game.
So and that football that goes along with football, I suppose.
Yeah,
Good deal, man. Good lists on both of our accounts. A lot of steps in there as we head into oh boy the Mr. Smarty Pants effort. As we first reported here on Soup and Meatballs, Thursday is Thanksgiving, and in honor of that, a few Thanksgiving related trivia questions for you. There's 2 questions and a different list then. So question number 1. Can you name the one single solitary NFL team to have never played a Thanksgiving game?
Texans.
Didn't make the list. And they might be counting Houston. I don't know. Again, I didn't do the research, but
right.
They were not the team that was listed.
How about the Panthers?
Panthers played a Thanksgiving game.
Because I'm trying to think of like teams that are more recent that just had fewer opportunities.
You're on the right path.
The Jags?
With that thinking. There you go. Jacksonville Jaguars are the lone team to never play a Thanksgiving game. So
that makes sense.
1 for 3.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Now we're going to combine football and food. So, as you know, the Dallas Cowboys famously play on Thanksgiving every year. Perhaps less famously known, though, for all the Cowboys suite holders, as well as those with access to club areas and the press box at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, a traditional Thanksgiving Day meal is served. According to Legends Hospitality, last year, how many pounds of Cowboys mac and cheese were served?
So it's only in the suites?
It also says the press box and anyone with club access.
200 pounds.
No.
Okay. Less, I'm assuming?
Oh, no.
Oh, way more?
Way more.
1,000 pounds.
No.
Still too little? Oh, my God.
Way too little.
3,000 pounds.
Times that by 5 and keep going.
More than 15,000 pounds of mac and cheese?
16,320.
That's 8 cars.
When I saw that,
that's like 8 Honda Acuras of mac and cheese.
When I saw Thanksgiving questions, I thought, man, this one, I'd be interested to see where you started. You started at 200, and you were 16,100 off. You almost have to figure the mac and cheese is heavy as a bowl.
Yeah,
right?
Good mac and cheese is anyway.
But they do things bigger in Texas.
No wonder we have an obesity epidemic in this country. Those fat jerks in Texas.
But, you go to work tomorrow and tell people how many pounds of mac and cheese were consumed at a Dallas Cowboys game over Thanksgiving. 16,320. 320 pounds on its own. So, wow.
That's a Larry Allen of mac and cheese. The 320.
Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine making a life-size sculpture of Larry Allen out of mac and cheese?
Actually, I kind of can. I kind of want to.
There you go. It gives you something to do for the rest of the weekend after you watch the He-Man Thanksgiving Day float.
Yeah, and I'll try to find the clip of Belle Biv DeVoe because it really is a must-watch.
Oh, absolutely. We'll put the video on next week if we can. So list-wise for Mr. Smarty Pants, we're going to go back to our top story. As we earlier reported, the Major League Baseball Writers Association have released their ballot for the Hall of Fame, and we talked a little bit about percentages and will each row be unanimous, and we know the one unanimous player. So, can you name though the top 10 all-time highest voting percentages for Major League Baseball Hall of Famers. Number one is easy.
Yeah, so Rivera's 1.
You got Mo. That's a no-brainer.
And Jeter's got to be 2.
Jeter's number 2, and I completely, thoroughly, and utterly blame the one voter who didn't vote for him in 2020 as the reason for the COVID lockdown.
For the longest time, Tom Seaver was like at 98%. He was the highest, so he's got to still be.
Tom Seaver was not 98%. He was 98.8. He missed 5 votes, so he's number 4 on the list.
Okay. Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron, I believe, is down at number 9, 406 out of 415 for a 97.8.
Willie Mays.
Willie Mays, he made the list as over 90%, but he's not in the top 10.
Whew. Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle does not even appear to be above 90%. The other, of the list, the others I have over 90% are like in paragraph form. They're not in a list. So I don't see Mickey Mantle there at all. So he's under 90%.
What about, I remember Johnny Bench got a high percentage. What about Johnny Bench?
Johnny Bench, 96.4% is among the others receiving votes. Does not make the top 10. 96.4. Very high percentage. Just doesn't get in the top 10.
What about any of the first 5 who were enshrined? Are they?
Yes, one of them is.
Ruth.
Babe Ruth received. Oh my goodness! I thought I saw his name in there. Maybe I didn't. Babe Ruth is not among the players with. Oh no, here he is. Yeah, 95.1. But like I said, this is in paragraph form. I should have alphabetized him. He did not make the top 10.
Okay. Ty Cobb?
Ty Cobb, number 7 on the list, 98.2. He missed out on 4 ballots.
But the rest
of these people, I guarantee you have all seen play personally live and in living color.
Okay.
Because I have.
Personally live and in living color. What about Cal Ripken Jr.?
Cal Ripken Jr. comes in at number 6 with... he's got the KRZ of votes, 98.5.
What about Greg Maddux?
Greg Maddux makes the list as others receiving votes. He had 97.2. The player who was number 10 hit 97.6.
Randy Johnson.
So I mean, you're really close. Randy Johnson at 97.3. He is the highest of the others receiving votes. So he'd be number 11, it looks like.
What about Mike Schmidt?
Mike Schmidt, also on the list of others receiving votes, 96.5.
Oof.
So aside from Mickey Mantle, you're hitting everybody on the list, which is still impressive.
So it's someone post 1980.
Oh, yeah.
Griffey.
Which one?
Junior.
Ben Griffey Jr. is number 3 on the list, 99.3. 3 people left him off their ballot.
And how many have I named?
You're missing number 5, number 8, and number 10.
I might need another hint or two.
So for number 5, pitcher.
Nolan Ryan.
I was saying many different teams. So Nolan Ryan hit 98.8% of the vote. 6 people left him off the ballot.
Okay.
Number 8, enshrined in 1999.
George Brett.
George Brett, there you go, 98.2. And then number 10, if I'm in a tie ball, if I'm down by one with runners on second and third, he's definitely one of the guys I want batting.
Tony Gwynn.
Tony Gwynn, there you go. 97.6%, just edging out Randy Johnson's 97.3. So there's your top 10.
Huh.
The others receiving votes, if you're interested, Chipper Jones, Steve Carlton, Adrian Beltre, 95.1%, Hannes Wagner, Ricky Henderson, Carl Yastrzemski, Luke Appling, Bob Feller, Reggie Jackson, Ted Williams, Stan Musial, Vladimir Guerrero at 92.9, Roberto Clemente, Jim Palmer, Brooks Robinson, Tom Glavine, Wade Boggs, Ozzie Smith, Pedro, Christy Mathewson, Rod Carew, and Roberto Alomar all finished with higher than 90% of the vote eligible.
That's interesting. So it's a really generational thing that voters in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s were very reluctant, because I know like DiMaggio had to wait.
I don't know how many, so it might also be a percentage thing. I don't know if there were 400 voters back in the 30s and 40s as well.
Right, but yeah, so it's easier for a modern guy to get a consensus than it was. Huh.
It's easy. It's actually very easy to track, because with Ty Cobb, I have the percentage. He got 222 votes out of 226. Okay. So when
voting block.
When Derek Jeter was voted in 2020, the vote was up to 397. Ken Griffey in 2016, there was 440 votes. The highest vote total in 1999, Tony Gwynn, 2007, 545 ballots cast. Wow. So I don't know how that fluctuates as a writer. Who gets their ballot? Who decides not to send one in? Or
yeah, I mean, some of it might be like, not to be morbid, but as writers die off, retire, they haven't been around the game for a decade or so and shouldn't have a say.
There you go. If you are on the ball today. Like
I told you, I'm firing on all cylinders.
Seriously. So I did another bracket buster for you, and we'll see if you can figure out the category here. I think I have faith in you today. So we're gonna go teams, and I'm gonna give you two teams. Who do you like more, or who would win in your mind? So bracket number one, Toronto Blue Jays versus the Miami Heat.
Just like which franchise I like more?
I don't care. Just pick one. However, I didn't come up with how you should rank them. This is what you think in your mind.
Blue Jays.
You're going to go with the Blue Jays. Next round, the Washington Commanders versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Cavaliers can't vote for a division rival.
The New York Knicks versus the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, now you're putting my division rival theory to the Knicks. Never the Cavaliers. Yeah.
Okay. The Orlando Magic versus the Baltimore Orioles.
I'm going to go against my rule and say the Orioles.
Orioles, okay. All right. And our final four, we have the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Blue Jays.
Blue Jays. Then we have the New York Knicks against the Baltimore Orioles.
Knicks.
You're going to go Knicks. And in our final, the New York Knicks versus the Toronto Blue Jays.
Knicks.
The New York Knicks win. Wow.
That's not something you hear a lot.
I didn't know. I didn't see that. I didn't see that coming when I put this list together. Wow. Do you have any idea what the category was?
Off the top of my head, they're all teams that play east of the Mississippi. Toronto, Orlando, Miami, New York, Baltimore.
Okay, yes.
Cleveland.
Not what I was going for, They're all professional sports teams that make money.
They all have uniforms. None. Other than geography, I don't know if a theme jumps out to me.
Which is because you called it in the middle of the bracket, which is funny to me.
Division rivals?
Division rivals of your favorite teams.
Oh, well,
You
that
said
makes
I can't vote for a division rival, but you did anyway.
I know with the very first one I think that's because I don't think of Cleveland as a division rival. I think of the old divisional line.
They're in the Central
Where
Division
they're
now,
in the
yeah.
Central. Yeah.
But they're a division rival of Boston now.
Yeah.
I didn't think Milwaukee or who's at the bottom of that division now.
Philly.
But they're not really rivals right now, but Cleveland and Orlando are right there for you. So yeah, and I didn't put I didn't want to put like the Cowboys or Yankees in there because they're really big rivals, but I ran out of NFC East teams.
That's funny.
So that's an interesting look into the psyche of someone who doesn't know the category.
Yeah, it's funny that I immediately went to geography and not divisional alignment.
Well, when your favorite teams are in Boston, Philadelphia, you're naturally going to have those division rivalries east of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
East of Cleveland.
Huh. That was a pretty good one, though. I didn't think the Knicks would win any bracket of mine, but
I honestly thought Miami would win if I had to pick because they were my I guessed and they got bounced in the first game. So
yeah, for me it was because losing to Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago with the Celtics was maybe too fresh in my mind.
Still stings. I got you.
Yeah, like and like I have like a weird fondness for those Pat Riley Knicks teams. Who Pat Riley was in my top 10, by the way. He was
Xavier McDaniel. You know what? I actually, when you were talking about, who was it? You go back up and look here at your list. I think when you were talking about Mike Krzyzewski, I thought you were talking about Pat Riley.
Yeah, Pat Riley was 8th on my list. Because I'll tell you now, I had Belichick, Saban, Krzyzewski, Wooden. I had Bear Bryant 5, but then I was like, I had Popovich 6, I had Auriemma 7th, Riley 8th, Red Auerbach 9th, and Lombardi 10th.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised. I mean, if you're going to go back to Wooden and you're going back to those, I'm surprised Red didn't make the list.
See, but I think what Popovich winning his 5 in the type of NBA that he was coaching in was more impressive than the 8 straight that Red won when there were, only, 12 teams, 16 teams, whatever.
When you're your 5th draft pick, though, you pick with your heart more than your head.
Yeah. And, Popovich just like, I think because like I've seen him in interviews and I've seen him in game, he just seems like a good guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He seems like I could invite him to Thanksgiving dinner and we wouldn't have a bad conversation. He seems like
He'd probably bring up politics though. Him and Steve Kerr would.
They could sit at the other end of the table while I'm eating stuffing. That's fine. Speaking of, so we didn't. It is Sunday. We didn't talk about the NFL at all. So I mean, I just have the schedule up right now. The Bears are at home against the Vikings. The Eagles are going to the Rams. That's going to be a tough game for you guys.
Yeah, the Eagles are in prime time.
Ooh, so everybody's going to get a chance to see that one.
Yeah, I had someone texted me earlier this week to ask what I thought about it. And I said the Eagles are riding so high right now that I'm worried about them going cross country against a team that is better coached than them because McVay's a better coach than Sirianni. And with Baltimore looming, it feels like a potential trap.
Does it feel weird needing to root for Dallas this week?
A little bit.
Big rival. A lot of NFC East rivalries, but like Giants, Redskins, Cowboys, or Giants, no. Cowboys versus football team, Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to call them. Pretty big rivalry going back, and they're in Washington tonight, tonight in about 40 minutes they kick off. Washington right on the heels of Philadelphia in the standings, so you got a game lead on them you kind of, they're on a 2-game losing streak too. So
yeah, and obviously it helps that the Eagles beat them head to head already, and then they meet the final week of the season, which you'd like an excuse to rest your starters, but I think they're going to have to play it out against Washington.
I don't think Detroit loses today against Indy, so Detroit would go to 10-1. They have a 1-game lead for the 1 spot, the bye week in the playoffs. Detroit coming up, they end their season. They have 2 games with the Bears, I know, but they have a game against the Bills. They have a game against the Packers. So Philadelphia, who does Philly end their year with?
They have,
I know they have a Cowboy game coming up.
They have Baltimore, Carolina, Pittsburgh, and then I think they go Dallas, New York, Washington to end it.
That's at Washington, Dallas, New York. So yeah, their division. It's going to be a sprint or a slog to the finish for the 1 seed in the NFC.
Detroit,
AFC. It's Buffalo has a lead on it now with their win over the Chiefs. The refs didn't help the chefs last week, so the bubbly got popped in Miami.
That was such a good game. That Buffalo Kansas City game.
Who does this week?
We get a Harbaugh Bowl this week.
Kansas City against Carolina.
The Chargers and the Ravens play, right? The Harbaughs go against each other
on Monday night.
Yeah, Monday night. That'll be fun.
That'll be that's a playoff level game right there.
Yeah,
you could see that. You could see that opening weekend. The Harbaugh Bowls are fun. What do you think the Harbaugh Thanksgiving used to be like growing up?
They probably played like a pickup game in the driveway that was way too competitive, and probably like ended with them like having like some sort of like sloppy wrestling match in a pile of leaves that the dad had to break up.
Their dad wasn't breaking it up. Their dad was refereeing it.
And then like they would go in and then like argue over who got the bigger piece of turkey, and then they would wrestle again.
You know who they remind me of, because I just saw this clip on video streaming on Seinfeld when Seinfeld's dad went to Florida and they saw that guy who was, you think you're better than me?
Yeah, Izzy Mendelbaum.
Watch me lift this TV. I see Jack Harbaugh sitting there. What? Let me lift this TV. Oh, my back.
I love when he finds out the TV is bolted down. He's like, why didn't you stop me? I thought you could do it anyway.
Jim's like, I thought you could do it anyway, Pop. I can see the 3 of them trying to pick up the TV.
Harbaugh.
Here you go.
Oh my God, we're approaching 2.5 hours. We're almost as long as Wicked.
So I'll talk Wicked with you. That my number 1 favorite Broadway show, if you remember from weeks back.
I do, and it's funny. I kept saying I had very little interest in seeing it, but I've had people tell me like they really enjoyed it.
We have tickets for Wednesday.
Yeah, I might sneak off to I'm off all this week from work because I have so much time off saved up. So I might sneak off to a matinee one day this week.
So, and have you've never seen the Broadway show?
No, I only know the bare bones of the plot.
So, I mean, without spoiling anything, what's kind of neat about this is it starts here, then the beginning of the show goes back in time 20, 30 odd years or whatever, but then it catches up with the timeline of The Wizard of Oz. So,
and I was reading an article because I'm a big nerd for the Academy Awards. I was trying to see early predictions on Oscar nominations, and I think it was Variety said that Wicked is currently the front runner for Best Picture.
Wow, which it's as a musical, is that normal?
So musicals won a lot in the 50s and 60s, like West Side Story, My Fair Lady.
Okay.
Paris. And then there was a big drought until Chicago won like 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay. I saw Chicago with Jen. That was Richard Gere, right?
Yeah, he plays Billy.
Richard Gere was he was good. The show centers around Roxy Hart and the other one,
Velma Kelly.
There you go. Yeah, Velma Kelly. But yeah, Richard Gere was solid, and then John Riley was he fit as the lovable loser guy. But so Wicked's my favorite show, and I get like weird sappy, like emotional at the end, like at the ending because of how it was set up. Like, and you have to tell me if you have the same kind of weird feelings about the end, but I don't know how the movie's going to end versus how the show ends, because sometimes, so Phantom of the Opera, I mean, you've had enough time to see that. On stage, it ends with the Phantom's death, and they changed up in the movie where it ends with the chandelier destroying everything. That's intermission on Broadway, or when it was on Broadway. So it'd be interesting to see how the movie plays with the timeline, because it's able to.
What I understand about Wicked is because it's split into two parts. So this one ends, I guess, where the intermission is in the stage show, and then Wicked Part 2 will come out next November. So
are they? Oh, they're doing that. Oh gosh, that's the Cobra Kai mentality. I hate that.
When I saw that this one was 2 hours and 40 minutes, I was like, well, that's long, but I guess they have a lot to. Oh, that's only for half the story. Oh, that was part of, I think, what turned me off. Was I was like, 2.5 hours to tell half the story? Like, how bloated is this thing going to be?
I'm still going to go, but like now I have a prejudicial view of it. Like, yeah, what can you do? Like, I don't need sweeping landscapes of Oz. Just like, tell me the dang story.
And I'm also not a big Jeff Goldblum guy.
Is he in it? Again, I know nothing about it. I know the two head actresses because I saw them do a TikTok together. They kind of look like us. There's like a bald one, and then there's the other one.
Yeah, Goldblum plays the wizard.
I mean, so Jen and I are rewatching The League now. You need something to watch at night that's somewhat mindless. You don't have to like really get thinky with it.
Yeah.
Have you seen The League?
Oh, sure.
Jeff Goldblum as Ruxin's dad is maybe the best casting ever.
It's great casting.
But as the wizard,
I just find that like Goldblum, he's found that like people buy into his whole let me just like that whole shtick he does where he puts his hands to his face and stammers, and it doesn't feel like he's a real person anymore. He's playing the part of Jeff Goldblum.
It saved the world.
And that's what's annoying to me. What's that?
He did save the world in Independence Day.
Don't get me started on that movie.
I gave it a virus. Virus.
I got into several debates with people because Jaws is one of my favorite movies ever. So clearly it's my favorite July 4th movie. And I've had people try to tell me Independence Day is better.
I don't know about better.
You can see what it did to my face.
When we did you come to the movie with us when it came out?
No, I didn't see. I had no interest in seeing it.
I went with. I remember Pasco came with us because when we got there, when you walk in the theater, like the gate was there, and like you had to get your ticket, and then you walk out. The guy kept saying, "Oh, well, Independence Day, single seating only." You couldn't sit with your buddy, like because there was only like spattering. It was the most popular movie at the Hazelton Theater for like 2 weeks. But then, oh, dude, you might have been here for this one. Did you go our senior year? Senior year at the cheap theater on Broad Street. They had it for $1. And I thought, you know what, I want to go see this movie. And our football coach had this rule. This is so dumb. Like it is a Cinderella rule almost. Like when it got dark, you had to be inside.
I remember we broke that rule to see Kingpin.
But he said if he catches you drinking, you're going to get a 1-game suspension. But if you're out past dark, you're kicked off the team. Like, what?
Yeah, and it was the same way if you had an earring, except like 3 guys on the team had earrings anyway.
I didn't have an earring, so I didn't even know he had that rule. He had the facial hair rule. Like
no facial hair, no hair below the collar.
Back then. As a matter of fact, I don't remember anybody having beards, even with Coach Matz. There was one guy who played for Coughlin who really had like a big bushy hillbilly beard, but that wasn't a big thing in the 90s. But yeah, so we went to we broke the rule to go see Independence Day for $1 at the Cinema Draft House. But I don't know what it was called back then. It had a different name.
I think it was the Majestic.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because it was when I first moved to Hazleton, it was the Key Theater.
Key
and
Theater,
then it was the Majestic. And now it's the Cinema and Draft House.
I saw some good movies there, man.
Me too.
I saw Field of Dreams there with my dad.
I saw The Burbs there.
And with the pretty girl, friend of yours.
There go that damn Brownies.
Top 5 best Burb quotes coming soon. I remember I saw 7 there. That was in 90. I remember 95. December 9th, 1995. That's weird. I remember the date. Oh goodness. No, yeah, but good time. I won't argue that it's the best 4th of July movie. I mean, it's the best movie where the Earth was saved from an alien invasion.
I don't even know if I agree with that.
Yeah, it's better than Mars Attacks.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a pretty good movie.
I haven't seen it. I'm a terrible person. I saw Mars Attacks though, which has also made me a terrible person.
Now Mars Attacks I saw in theaters, not Independence Day, but I did see Mars Attacks.
What's worse, Mars Attacks or Mortal Kombat 2 Annihilation?
I liked Mars Attacks.
So bad. I liked Mortal Kombat 1.
I also saw that. Back then, I saw everything in theaters except, Independence Day.
Well, that was what else we were going to do?
Yeah, we didn't. My family didn't even have cable, like basic cable. Was I going to sit there and watch PBS?
Auckland Group?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if I can go out to the movies, guys. There's a special episode of Nova.
I'm struggling. I'm actually trying to think of other alien invasion movies. Like War of the Worlds, I think was a movie. They made it a movie. I think that was like a serial on TV.
Well, I mean, it was like a radio program.
A radio show, yeah. But the V was also a TV thing.
Yeah. I don't
That's
know
an untapped genre. Predator. We can call that. He was an alien. He invaded.
E.T. technically invaded. They entered our Earth uninvited.
All of our
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But Mortal Kombat 2 he sees.
I liked Mortal Kombat 1 and it ended on a cliffhanger. I needed to see what Shao Kahn was going to do. And Shao Kahn was one of the worst actors ever. Oh, he was so bad.
I just love that you needed closure to the story.
I did. How about this? This is a true story. So I suck at Mortal Kombat the game. I can't play it. Not that I have any moral aversion to it. I'm just bad at it. Now, like the most recent Mortal Kombats come with a story mode. Some guy on YouTube buys the game. 20 minutes later, he wins the game, and he uploads every cutscene. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. I sat and I watched the whole thing, like just enveloped in the backstory of like, oh, this is what Johnny Cage is doing now. Oh, this is what Scorpion's up to now. Like,
you're a real Mortal Kombat completist. Completist spelled with a K, of course.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't know any of the earlier stuff, like the PlayStation 1 Mortal Kombat story, like the advent of who's like the evil wizard guy with the white head. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Like there was a whole backstory with him.
Was it Raiden?
No, Raiden was a good guy. So now I got to look it up. Mortal Kombat wizard guy. Not Shang Tsung was awesome. Quan Chi.
Okay.
A powerful demon necromancer from the Netherrealm who appears along Shinnok, Shao Kahn, and Shang Tsung. So there was a whole backstory with him. And so I started watching some of the pre-Mortal Kombat stuff. I got into the Mortal Kombat stories during 2020 when, you weren't going outside. That's what I got into. Cool stories, man.
2020, when we weren't allowed to go outside, I just watched Mad Men. again, like start to finish. Because where else, where was I going?
I got into I got into short video stuff either on TikTok or Reels or stuff like that. But the one lengthy thing, the movie length thing I would watch was Mortal Kombat cutscenes, and the guy he would always show like the last 4 or 5 seconds of the fight that leads into the cutscene. That got annoying. I'm like, dude, I don't need to see 20 seconds of your fight with, Melina. Just get to the story here. But I could never do it myself, so I appreciate the fact that this guy went out there and did it for me so that I could watch the story for free on YouTube.
I have no room to judge because I spend like an hour watching like cooking clips on TikTok. So,
oh, do you watch? I don't know the guy's name. So, I was talking to my buddy Chris, who comments on us online from time to time. He knows TikTok creators by name, and I'm just like, no, I know. He's like the guy who curses, and he's like, "We're gonna make a grilled cheese sandwich. Don't blank it up." And then he yells at you like he's aggressive. Get your bread. Put it in the damn oven.
Like,
yes, sir.
I watch that Chef Reactions guy. I really like.
Yeah. I like Chef Reactions when he talks about the guy making stuff out of chocolate.
Yeah, when he's always like, this just makes me hate myself so much.
It's like, all right, 10,000 people tagged me in this. I hate myself already. 20 million out of 10.
Would eat all of it.
I would eat all of it. I saw he made the coolest thing that the chocolate guy made was like a life-size Lego minifig, complete with like, the hands. Like, how do you do that with chocolate? That's insane.
I saw one where he made a working fire hydrant that shot out milk instead of water.
That's nuts. How long does that have to take? Like
everything. Like he made like little chocolate rivets and like all of it.
Oh yeah,
and then you could unscrew the cap and he'd made like cookies that were in the cap,
so cool.
for the milk.
So you got to look up this guy. I'll shout this guy out loud. Scotty K Fitness. Scotty K Fitness. He is so sometimes he'll do some cooking stuff, but sometimes he'll do some motivational stuff. He'll do his lives. He lifts in his home gym. He might be one of my favorite people on that app or whatever you want to call it. And so the people I work with Video Game Clubs of America, they went to something called TwitchCon, which we're actually live on Twitch too, by the way. We could have gone to TwitchCon. He was there, and I told him, "This guys, you got to go see this guy. Just say hi." And he's smaller than I pictured because they got a picture with him, and he's shorter than my buddy Josh, and Josh is about my size. So Scotty K Fitness is probably about 5'6", but he's like really muscular, and he's got this really you're gonna love his mustache. If nothing else, you're gonna like his mustache. So along with watching He-Man on Macy's Day Parade, you got to look up Scotty K Fitness. I think I might have sent you some videos of Scotty K Fitness, actually, now that I think about it.
That's entirely possible because when we were texting last night and you said about the Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio debate, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And you're like, yeah, you suggested that like a week ago. And I was like, oh.
It was a month and a half ago. I'm like, well, that doesn't really fit in what we're talking about now. Better. It was before the Major League Baseball playoffs started, I think. I'm like, well, it doesn't fit now. But I said, yeah, when the MVP is announced, because I'm always worried, and I worry about this now. Like when we do our show in June, what are we drafting? By February, we're going to run out of stuff to draft.
Nah, we'll think of it the Thursday of that week, like we always do.
I used to have a list of like trivia questions to ask you. Like, I'm going to run out eventually, but I came up with the Thanksgiving thing yesterday. So, but like eventually, like, yeah, we're going to need a story for like in the can. So, or as Scotty K Fitness would say, in the can. It'll make sense when you see it. I thought you had the Ted Williams thing. That makes sense when we do the MVP. We'll write that down. We'll remember it. And you'll text me, random things. Let's see here. Let's go back in the stream here. We could talk about this. We could talk about that. Do you think Chewbacca had a human-like genitalia or one of those? Like, come back. We could talk Star Wars, and that was a meme. That wasn't your actual thoughts, by
right?
The way. we talked about Mike Tyson. Give me. Oh, I told you I went to ChatGPT. Top 5 snacks for a road trip. Come on, AI, do better. Ooh, I like this one. I'm definitely going to put number 6 in the can. I like that one. We just heard from one of our fans. In June, we can draft amusement park rides. So that's your job to remember that. Or she'll remind me.
So I'm ever since we were talking about Thanksgiving food and then the 16,000 pounds of mac and cheese.
320. Don't shortchange him, Larry Allen.
Yeah. Don't forget that Larry Allen sized mac and cheese. I think I need to make some lunch because we're almost getting ready for kickoff for the 1 o'clock games.
Dude, it's 12:41. The Bears are going to Minnesota, and they're gonna. Oh, they're home against Minnesota.
They can beat Minnesota.
They should beat Minnesota, but I just want on a 4-game losing streak. I just want Caleb Williams to keep improving. They're not making the playoffs, so you might as well get a top 10 draft pick. That's where my head is.
Should I play us out? I won't sing. I'll just hum along silently while you do the wrap up.
Sounds like a plan, folks. You've been watching Soup and Meatballs, a Soup and Meatballs production. Executive producer Tim Hare, graphic director Max Gemelli, and we'll see you on the other side of the other side. Happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully we get a chance to do a show next week. It might not be Saturday, it might be Sunday, but we've got nothing better to do than watch us talk about stuff. That guy